I'd like to call the City of Marine City Commission meeting to order. Regular meeting Thursday, August 17, 2017, 7 p.m. Could we stand for a prayer with Father Rooney, please?
We begin in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. O God, creator of the universe, who extends your fatherly concern over all creation and guides the events of history to the goal of salvation. We acknowledge your fatherly love when you break the resistance of people, and in a nation disturbed by strife and discord, you make us ready for the work of reconciliation. Renew for us the wonders of your mercy. Send forth your Holy Spirit, that the Spirit may work in the intimacy of our hearts, that enemies may begin to dialogue, that adversaries may shake hands, and our people may encounter each other in harmony. May we commit ourselves this evening to the sincere search for peace and harmony in our nation, in our state, and in our own community. Extinguish all hateful arguments. May each of us work for charity, which overcomes hatred, for pardon, which disarms revenge, and for the patience to listen attentively without prejudgment. All these things we ask in the name of your Son, Jesus the Christ, who lives and reigns forever and ever.
And the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Vanderbilt.
Here.
Commissioner Avery.
Present.
Commissioner Hendrick.
Here.
Commissioner Clausen.
Here.
Commissioner Leftley. Here. Commissioner Simpson.
Here.
Commissioner Turner.
Here.
City Manager Levin. Here.
Next, we're moving on to communications. We would like to make one change to communications by moving a new business proclamation up into communications, if that's good with the board. We have pending agenda items, water meter training certificates, and Michigan Municipal League annual meetings. Can I get a motion to receive and file those?
So moved. Support.
All in favor of those?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next, I'd like to go to the proclamation for the state championship 10U softball team. Can I get a motion for this proclamation?
I'll make a motion to read the proclamation.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Coach. Whereas the proclamation, whereas the Marine City 10U softball team and their coaches have helped create a positive image for the city and the citizens of Marine City, and whereas the dedication, hard work, mutual support, and commitment of the team and the coaches exemplify pride and heart of the Marine City Little League program, and whereas the recognition and celebration of the Marine City 10U softball team serves to bring our community together in honoring their players, their coaches for a phenomenal season, resulting in an outstanding finish. And whereas the Marine City 10U softball team and their coaches, Brian Dietland, were successful in capturing the 2017 Minor League District 7 championship. And whereas, one more, the Marine City 10U softball team and their coaches, Brian Dietland, were successful in capturing the 2017 8 to 10-year-old state championship, Michigan's championship. Now therefore it be resolved that the City of Marine City, along with the City Commission and the citizens of Marine City, officially acknowledge and pay tribute to the 2017 Marine City 10U softball team, coach, and coaching staff for their outstanding achievements and contributions, and encourage each member of the team to continue their positive athletic contributions. In testimony whereof I hereunto set my hands and cause to be affixed the Great Seal of the City of Marine City, May 17th, August 2017.
Thank you. Do you mind if I? Sure. Thank you on behalf of Coach Dietland and Coach Chris Simons and Adam Blanchard. Really appreciate the support that the city has given, specifically Mayor Vandenbosch, Ms. Hendricks, again, for Tuesday night and the commission again. It was just a wonderful event. Just putting that on for the families and the family and the team. Just really an opportunity, made it special for these young ladies. We were so proud. I work in a school district in Chippewa Valley Schools, and when I tell them, and again, if you know Chippewa Valley Schools, Dakota won the state championship the same year that Marine City High School won the state championship. And if you understand your sports history, Marine City holds the record for the biggest sellout in Dakota, double, triple that size. And when I tell them of the support, and I show them the pictures from Marine City, it just about brings a tear to everyone's eyes. And then I tell the story that we didn't get medals, we didn't get any trophies, and how our city stepped up and supported our girls. It's an amazing story. Not about winning, it's about building a community. And I appreciate you as a town, as a city, really fostering that. And I know for my daughter in particular, it's something she'll never forget. Just the way this city has wrapped their arms around her and has encouraged a young lady to dream bigger than she ever thought she could dream. So I appreciate that. Thank you on behalf of myself and the coaching staff. I don't know, Coach, if you have anything, I really appreciate it.
No, that was very well said. I agree completely with Adam. I was born and raised in Marine City. I love this town. I love the people, and obviously very well knowledgeable about their sports, whether it comes to 9, 10-year-old softball girls or state championship football teams. The support's always there, and you can see that ongoing even to today. Thanks again.
Thank you.
On to public comment. Residents are welcome to address the City Commission. Please state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 5 minutes.
My name's Gary Gabler. Can you hear okay? I live at 544 Pearl Street, Marine City. I come before you tonight to address the blight issue. It has come to my attention in recent Marine City Commission meetings. Residents have addressed the issue of not enforcing the blight ordinances. No one has come forward to address enforcing the blight ordinances. Marine City is a great place to live. We have an excellent fire, police, and DPW, and a good city government that functions very efficiently. Besides the departments aforementioned, the City Commission has the duty as elected officials to enforce all ordinances. This means all ordinances and not pick to choose which ones they will enforce. On July 19, 2016, the residents of Marine City were invited to attend a public visioning session with St. Clair County officials and Marine City City Commissioners. At this session, the attendees were broken into small groups to discuss what they envision for Marine City in the next 10 years. One of the top 3 issues of the enforcement was the blight ordinance. Houses and yards that are blighted devalue the property, and the city lower property tax values means lower tax revenue for the city. Most blighted houses in our city just need a little cleanup work outside, a very simple and easy fix. We moved from a community that did enforce the blight ordinance. Of the 9 cases of blight violations that went to court, all 9 were won. The homeowners were ordered to clean up their property and to pay fines. By not enforcing the ordinances, the city is wide open for lawsuits for people that care. Tents, boats, and RVs and trailers should not be stored in front yards or driveways in Marine City. The Marine City City Commission are elected by the residents of the city. They cannot pick and choose their ordinances they will enforce. You can start by making a condensed list of violations that need immediate attention. Publish this in a local newspaper, on the Marine City Facebook page, and the Marine City newsletter. Don't tell residents to go online and look up this information. There are residents who don't have computers nor the skills needed to look up this information. And begin with small steps and keep it simple. Just ignoring the issue won't solve any problems. Thank you for your time and consideration of this most important issue.
Mr. Jenkins.
I see a discussion about the tip is going to be a 9A. I was wondering if I could come up and make comments then.
On the
I'm
board?
a former vice chairman.
Sure. Be fine.
Thanks.
Bob Lepley, 539 North William. I have essentially the same request as Keith. I am on the TIFA board. I respectfully request an opportunity to speak to item 9A on the agenda, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
My wife and I would also like to address the commission regarding 9A.
Okay.
Thank you.
During public comment. That's right.
My name is Milt Hintz. I'm at 435 South Main. I approached the council in the last meeting to complain about the Holy Land I live next to. It's still the same, and he still don't care. Now, I'd like to know when was the last time anybody addressed checking into a rental property. Do I have to sell my property, then lease it back, and then you leave everything alone? You talk about safety conditions. That 60-foot tree falls in my driveway. That could be a safety condition. But only if it's not Holy Land. Me trying to get them to do something with the tree is like trying to open a McDonald's in India. Everybody look at you and say, yeah, we'll think about it. But it ain't never gonna happen. A couple of meetings ago, a man approached you and told you he had 2 words for you. Common sense. One is, you can't teach it. And the other one is, you can't legislate it. So you gotta use it if you got it. Remember that when you pass ordinances.
Anyone else like to speak? Mr. Squires.
I know we asked to hold our comments to later, but I just want to say one thing. For anybody out there that doesn't know what happened regarding these Little League girls, at the end of and when they won the trophy, they got one trophy that they could keep a year, but each girl just got a carnation. And the mayor and Commissioner Hendricks, and I'm not sure who else, took it upon themselves to give each kid a little trophy, and I believe it was a medal, and had a little hot dog and corn roast for them on Tuesday so that they got to celebrate, and that's what that man was thanking them about. I just want to make people aware, and I really appreciate that because I think kids need a good push forward, and I thank you, Mayor and Commissioner, for doing that.
Anyone else like to speak? Hearing none, we're moving on to approval of the agenda. Need a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
I second that motion, please.
I'm going to vote against that. We have some things here that we wanted to add to the agenda. Is this the time to do that?
Yes.
I would move that we add the requested 1, 2, 3 on the handout, installation of the light pole at 300 Broadway. These are time-sensitive things that have no disagreement to them, but to move forward in a timely manner, and the charitable gaming license for the Bell River PTO and the beach playground equipment discussion. So I would move that they be added to the agenda at the appropriate place.
You want to put them in with new business?
Yes.
At the bottom of new business, so they'd be,
H, I, and J.
yes, I was working on that.
I'd be willing to amend my original motion to include those under new business in that order.
I would still like to second the motion as amended.
Any questions or concerns on the agenda and the changes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Need a motion to approve the minutes for the City Commission regular meeting, August 3rd, 2017.
I move to approve the City Commission regular meeting minutes, August 3rd, 2017, as presented.
Support?
Support.
Any questions or concern on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. I need approval for the City Commission closed session minutes, August 3rd, 2017.
I move to approve the City Commission closed session meeting minutes, August 3rd, 2017, as presented.
Support.
Questions or concerns on the closed session? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Moving on to the consent agenda. Zoning Board of Appeals, June 7th, 2017. The department activity reports, Marine City Area Fire Authority run reports, business license for Passport Pizza, and brew pub license for Blue Pike Cantina, 6385 King Road.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second the motion to approve that agenda.
Roll call vote. Are any other questions or concerns on the consent agenda? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Avery.
Yes.
Commissioner Hendrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Clausen.
Yes.
Commissioner Lefley.
Yes.
Commissioner Simpson.
Yes.
Commissioner Turner. Yes. Mayor Dantos.
Yes.
Carries.
Now we're going to move on to unfinished business. TIFA fund balance and financial obligations.
Thank you, Your Honor, and the request to speak directly to the item. I only have a few things to share tonight, so it shouldn't take too long. No, I'm joking. In summary, having read over some of the detail of TIFA and coming to some grasp with it, we find that the fund balances total around $884,000. I want to point out that if TIFA ends now, I estimate about $400,000 in encumbrance will be lost, plus an immediate $50,000 a year loss by termination of administrative services on behalf of the city. That's the amount that TIFA pays Mary Ellen and others to oversee, take notes, do minutes, and provide administrative services for us. And TIFA currently pays about $72,500 total for that operation. Mary Ellen informs me that that figure, if TIFA goes away, would drop to about $23,000. So that's where the $50,000 loss comes to, okay? I would estimate of the $884,480, about $438,000 might be left when we're done, roughly. I'm sure that will be invested in infrastructure, sewers, streets, sidewalks, and so forth, which could have been budgeted over the years until the state reduced revenue sharing to all the cities in the state and townships, et cetera. and that has cost Marine City about $5.5 million since 2005. Now, those are just kind of some monetary kind of things, and I'll allude to those again perhaps later. I want to point out the list of Tifa's investment in the city over the years is substantial. The contribution has been both direct to the general fund by virtue of using the city's service for administrative services, paying roughly $72,500 a year for that, as I mentioned, and also aided the general fund by stepping in to help with lighthouse and water tower maintenance and a resurface project the length of Shortcut Road linking the Kmart Plaza to VG's. After a boil water warning did not reach all citizens, at commission request, city commission request, Tifa helped fund the electronic sign on Parker. Matching for grants awarded enabled the streetscape project, which when in progress revealed old wooden sewer pipes under Broadway. Helping provide a suitable police station relieved the city's commitment to a $2,600 a month lease on King Road. Adding on to the library and securing the envelope at City Hall were also viable investments, providing both enhancement and relieving the burden on the city budget. In 2005, 30 to 40% of Water Street storefronts were empty. Now occupancy exceeds 95%. Providing kickstarts to facade and upstairs renovation both beautified the downtown and also provided increased population there. Additional private investment and occupancy resulted directly from that. Helping with beautification projects like the flowers in season, banners and flags year-round create a welcoming atmosphere for visitors. I don't know of anybody that doesn't go to Sheboygan and not comment on the flowers on along the roadway coming into town. Tifa captures $168,500 a year. 66% comes from Tifa's own residents, 80% of which are businesses. And 34%, the remaining 34% of capture is from the county. Note that there is no capture from schools or residents outside the district. Also important to note that no resident of Marine City pays any more tax based on where they live in a district or out than anybody else does. As I stated in a previous visit, I believe this proposal to dissolve Tifa is short-sighted. What will happen to the programs mentioned, I've already mentioned, plus special events? What about Maritime Days, Heritage Days, Discover the Blue? What about further parks and rec development? What about a grant-seeking service? Will all or even some of these be nothing more than memories? The state is currently reworking Tifa laws. I ask that we all have time to weigh the outcome of their rulings and investigate the options available. Here are a summary of some, and by the way, that's what this packet that I used to threaten you with was. And I'm not going to talk that long and read all that to you. There are about 8 different DDA Tifa proposals under consideration by the state legislature, and that's a summary of each of those. Some of them would most likely, I would hope, fit, but you need time to research and choose the one that best accomplishes the purposes ongoing. I request application at this time for a 5-year extension of Tifa to give us the time we need. Now, I feel there is still much to be done as well. Board members have compiled a working list to pursue, and we need Tifa and its funding to further enhance the city and provide relief to the budget. Mr. Mayor, I would remind you that you ran for this office promising not to impede the progress and rejuvenation in Marine City, but to promote it. As always, we all must act in the best interests of a majority of our citizens. I think to do away with Tifa is short-sighted, and we will all pay a price for a decision to do so. If and when you vote, I ask you to consider all of this and vote for long-term gain, not short-term reward. Thank you.
Mr. Jenkins, you had something.
Keith Jenkins, 809 South Water Street. I was asked to join the TIFA board back in 2004 by former commissioner, the late George Fisher, who was also a neighbor of mine, and I refused him, and then one day he caught up with me at the little bar, and I didn't refuse him. So I'm not going to tell you the circumstances, but I did join I think I started in 2005, but no one ever really explained to me what TIFA did, and at that point, I didn't have to worry about it because there was like 7 meetings, I think, were canceled the first year out of 12. I thought, this is an easy board. I like this board. Later, we found out when the City Hall battle began and everything hit the fan, Bill Clausen will testify to the point that it was a false abandonment and basically a scam pulled on the people of Marine City. And apparently the TIFA board was kind of in collusion because that's why the meetings were getting canceled. They were just holding money to the tune of about $1.2 million to build a new city hall. But regardless of all that, the TIFA board basically turned them down. We wouldn't put it on the in the program. So then a number of the board members quit after that. They were angry, and some good people came on. And we sat around at the meetings and discussed how we could make Marine City grow. And what we came up with is that the businesses were failing because there just wasn't enough people in Marine City to support everything. And if the ones that didn't fail were just like scraping by, just surviving. So we thought, well, we've got the Blue Water River out here. It's probably the greatest asset we have. We've got a great location. We got 5 parks. We got a fairly picturesque town. So we thought, well, let's try to make it a destination city. And that's what we worked towards for years. And we, there was a lot of pushback and blowback, and people that came to the meetings and yelled at us and called us names. But I really think that it paid off in the long run. But I don't want to run over the ground that Bob did, but I would like just to run down a list here of the things that got done just while I was on the board. Some of the projects. One was the Seawall River Walk project. That was hundreds of feet of steel seawall and a concrete promenade along the river downtown. The old Parker Street water tank demolition and removal. And of course, there's the annual funding for the hanging flower baskets and barrels, which I think was probably the very beginning of a turnaround for Marine City, as small as that might have been. And of course, the library expansion, which included a state-of-the-art computer facilities. And as Bob said, we relocated the police department from a pole barn on King costing $2,600 a month to a brand new modern facility on the corner of Parker and Ward Street where they should have been. TIFA paid for tree trimming around town, paid for a number of traffic studies, engineering services, and legal services. We paid for the irrigation, the sprinklers for the parks, and along with benches and picnic tables. TIFA saved the historic City Hall from the wrecking ball by stabilizing the building structure and refurbishing the exterior to stop deterioration. TIFA paid for the Christmas lights that you see on Parker and Water every year that mounted to the telephone poles. Along with the grant from the St. Clair County Parks and Rec, TIFA bought a dilapidated house on the river, demolished it, and created a pocket park down on Water Street. And when the Broadway sewer and water infrastructure was failing, TIFA landed a grant to install new systems and create a streetscape to draw folks downtown. They also paid for the banner poles at the entry of the streetscape. The Maritime Days folks put them to good use a couple weeks ago. MISTA introduced the building facade program by providing 50% funding toward the cost of redoing the exteriors of businesses downtown. Tifa sweetened the pot by providing another 25% of the cost, up to $7,500 each. The Riviera was one of the first businesses to take advantage. 6 or 7 others followed suit shortly. Then there was the rental rehab MISHDA program for low-income rental units. Tifa also provided those funds. In Precinct 2, Tifa funded laying sidewalks where there was none or replacing old existing sidewalks on the following streets. Sorry. These are the streets that we provided sidewalks for: Chartier, Scott Street, Bruce Street, Carroll Street, Brown Street, Robertson, Bell, Cottrell Street, Ward, West St. Clair, South Third, South Parker, and Brown twice, actually. Now this all came to 8,324 lineal feet of sidewalk in Precinct 2 alone. That's 41,620 square feet of cement. But they weren't done yet. They also funded paving streets in Precinct 2, including Robertson, Carroll Street, Scott Street, Bruce Street, and most of the paving extended east and west of Parker, and the cost to the city was nothing. So no one's taxes were raised for any of this stuff, any of it. And unlike most small towns in the Blue Water area, Marine City grew and prospered during a deep, deep recession, and basically became the poster child for all these other cities to emulate. So the issue is, I can't think of any other entity in this city that's done more to move it forward, other than the commission maybe approving this stuff. But if you're going to give up that funding, what are you going to replace it with? There's plenty that's left to do. It seems to me that if you spent enough time and tried to come up with a solution to extend the TIFA and iron out the wrinkles, if that was necessary, it'd be well worth it. Thanks. Excuse my voice. I don't know what's wrong.
Mrs. Squires.
Long ago, before City Hall was ever closed, I was attending TIFA meetings. Basically, was the only one attending TIFA meetings as a guest, just like I was last week Tuesday, or this past Tuesday, but I attended TIFA meetings. I haven't been to every TIFA meeting, but I've been to a lot of them. I don't really believe there was collusion to build a new City Hall. I believe we had a problem at City Hall, and yes, there was monies to build a building. So I want to start with what I have written. And I do really say that that is a disrespect to people that are deceased, like Adeline Coors and Pete Paxton and former Commissioner Petiprin, that they were not spending the money. That is not how it went with the TIFA. How it went was we had a problem with some money we had to pay back, and we were holding monies back until we could pay them back because we had somehow enlarged our district and we weren't allowed to enlarge the district, and there was monies to be paid back. So that's how that balance happened to get there. It was not collusion. So I'm going to start with what I have to say. After the Broadway City Hall was vacated, now over a dozen years ago, at that time there was enough money in TIFA 3 to build us a new City Hall with a police station and a multiple-purpose community center. I sadly watched money drain out of TIFA accounts for things like flowers, Christmas lights, and every project that came along with someone who had their hand out to get. When you have that amount of money, even misspent, some good projects will come out of it. What always disgusted me was the initials, TIFA. What they stand for, the T stands for tax. This is not free money falling from the sky like pennies from heaven. It is all money we have paid for in taxes. The worst part is over a third of our city is in these districts. rerouting general fund monies out of our general fund, much of it from our largest tax-paying properties. Maybe it has funded projects, but it has also taken monies away from the general fund, burdening homeowners and taxpayers. First of all, this particular tax increment finance district is Michigan 480 of 1980. It was created when DDAs, downtown development areas, were popular, and state legislators thought maybe it would benefit other areas. Within 7 years, it was rescinded because it was such a disaster. Why would we stay in TIFAs that the state found unbeneficial? You could not make any type of TIFAs like this today. And they are in the two of the largest TIFAs in our city, TIFA 2 and TIFA 3. I think it's long overdue to close these TIFAs. Thank you.
Ray Squires, 211 Michigan. I think the biggest misuse of TIFA, which is our tax money, not free money, not money for pet projects and so on, has been the diversion of money used to re-brick and restore the outside of old City Hall, which is not even in a TIFA district. This building's been vacant for over a dozen years. Who knows when the inside will ever be restored? After living here 22 years, I see no light at the end of this tunnel. Even when I first moved here, grants were looked into to restore the old building. They could never find grants. Then a short time later, we were asked to vote on a ballot to fund monies to restore the building. It went down to defeat. A few years after that, another ballot initiative, which asked the citizens to put up money to fix and restore Old City Hall, was again defeated. Voters' wishes have been disregarded by putting any money into this old City Hall. It seems like the people that want to keep TIFA, including Friends of City Hall, are looking for backdoor ways to fund their pet project. I can see why people who are Friends of City Hall would not want TIFA to end. Their cash cow is about to be slaughtered. Retiring TIFA is long overdue. It's the right thing to do. I was also on the TIFA board for a period of time. People came constantly with their hands out for their pet projects, whether it was for flowers or, again, monies for City Hall, which again, I was telling is that was against the voice of the people. My wife and I are in the Michigan Historical Society. We go to various towns around the state for conferences and seminars about historic topics relating to Michigan. People know that we're from Marine City. They comment, "You have such a nice old downtown, and we like the ferry," and we agree with them totally. But they also add, "Why are your local roads so bad?" But the most common question they ask is, "Are you still without a city hall? What's it been, 10 years? And I said, no, longer, about 12 years. They add, "I think Marine City is the only place in the state that doesn't have its own city hall." Why is that? Yes, commissioners, why is that? You know, progress and rejuvenation can be done without TIFA. A lot of other places in the state have done away with their TIFAs and are doing quite well. And Marine City will continue to grow and flourish too without Tifa. Thank you very much.
All right. At this point, what is the next step in this process?
When we first met on this, we did a series of memorandums. At the time, TIFA was set to expire December 15th of 2018. You asked me to prepare a status of TIFA, which I gave you a hard-to-read first memorandum that you recall that was very legal-esque in terms of just laying out the statute and the requirements. If we, for the public, go back and review the basics of that, this city commission as the governing board, under the law, was able to convene, and if you had determined that 4 conditions were met within an area of your town, you were allowed to, under the law, establish a district and then a taxing plan and put projects in place and have a board and have an authority. And the law says when you're done curing those issues, that the law is mandatory that you would then terminate TIFA, which makes sense. So the law sets out a purpose, and the law sets out a mechanism to cure the problems, and the law sets out a time to terminate. And everything that everybody said, tonight is correct. I mean, TIFA should be celebrated, in my opinion, from what I can see. A lot of TIFAs come and go and never achieve their purposes. They never are able to raise tax values. They just fail. They try and try, but they fail. And, for the purposes of the public, they're correct on the taxing. The taxes come from the increase that the benefits create. So, as you have a property that is in trouble and taxed at this rate, TIFA comes along and injects its wisdom and its goodness, and all of a sudden the tax rate is here. TIFA just captures off of the increase. It doesn't go and dip into the tax base that existed before TIFA. And what you did here was you put together great development areas. You had single and multiple purposes within those areas. You collected the money and you did wonderful things in those areas. And so we had put together a really, I gave you a long period of time to analyze this. It started with meetings in March and then April, and then there was a schedule of 7 meetings, if you remember in my memorandum. And tonight would be the meeting where you've already analyzed 4 of the criteria. And where you're at tonight is you're assessing, do we have enough money in the current TIFA accounts to satisfy our bond and other obligations without any additional money going into TIFA? That was the analysis that we went through, and we staged out over months so people could have time to think about it and comment on it. We did have a meeting with, during the course of this, with a representative group of TIFA board members. And we discussed openly the same issues we're discussing tonight. And I do believe during that meeting, I indicated that it would be my opinion that if empirical data could come before this city commission by way of facts and statistics and numbers and figures that would show that the 4 conditions to establish a TIFA remain in place in one or more of the districts, that I think the city commission would be wise to continue the TIFA along those lines. And I think we invited that presentation to be made based on data that would otherwise be available in the taxing records and within the city. So where we're at this evening is meeting number 5, which says, based on an analysis of 1 through 4, we should determine whether the fund balances exceed the total financial obligations, and then take action with respect to the taxing plan. Bear in mind that you have an expiration date of TIFA in 18. But when you create TIFA, you first create a taxing plan and you create a TIFA area. The taxing plan itself, which captures the tax, can be stopped earlier than the ending of TIFA itself. So when it's appropriate to stop the taxing plan is when you believe that you have sufficient funding in place to meet the obligations to the date of your projected termination. Now, when you handed me this assignment, you already had a termination date. I didn't set a termination date. You all had a December 15th, 18 termination date. So the accounting staff, through the city manager, has worked on items 1 through 4 in reverse, saying, as we look towards December 15th of 18, we have this much money, we have this many obligations, we have more money than obligations. And they've determined that, and I think presented you with that data. On the other hand, I haven't seen yet a presentation that shows that the 4 conditions to establish a purpose of TIFA remain in any one or more of the districts. I haven't been provided with that information. So that's the issue for this evening, is whether or not the taxing plan portion of TIFA should cease. That doesn't mean that the TIFA expenditures will stop. Bond payments will still be made timely. Other projects that have already been approved in different development areas will continue because we've already approved those if that's your desire. Bear in mind, it's the city commission who can start a TIFA, and it's the city commission who can terminate a TIFA. It falls on you. And that's why I staged this out over what could be determined to be a whole year of analysis. So I wanted plenty of time for it all to be reviewed, and plenty of time, quite frankly, for the TIFA folks to react and make strong presentations on the data. TIFA's done a great thing for this community. Absolutely no doubt, as I look at it, it's been a great thing.
As of right now, though, the only TIFA that's even close, that would need any further taxation would be TIFA 1, correct? Or
Well, let me address that concept. You only have one TIFA.
Zone 1, I'm sorry.
Yeah. You draw, you have one TIFA, you have 3 development areas. Okay, and they each have things you're doing, and one is, but you have one, it's only one group of money. And so you have to look at it now as you're looking at the issues before you, is you have one pot of money and one set of obligations that arise out of the 3 districts. One has bonds that are due, others have little things that you've pledged and promised.
Right.
But it's my understanding from an accounting standpoint, it's not really even close. You have plenty of money to handle the current obligations. If you didn't get another TIFA capture of a dime, you have money to handle the current obligations, including the bonds. So, when I did provide a handout, probably no one took it, that just summarizes on one page the basics of of Tifa, there's a time and a series of issues on how you establish it. In the middle, there's a taxing plan. And then, just so the public is clear, the language, this isn't my opinion, the statute says, an authority which has completed the purposes for which it was organized shall be dissolved by resolution of the governing body. And that's the part that you should celebrate, is that your program has accomplished the purposes. And if you go back to the purposes, it was to halt declining property values, increase your taxable values, eliminate the causes that are causing those declines, and to promote the growth. I mean, arguably, you've done that. And those were your purposes. If there would be empirical data and figures to support that those conditions in conjunction remained in a district, then we should hear that. But I think I haven't been provided with that.
Okay.
Is there any questions on that?
So at this.
Anyone? Because I'll answer, I can try to do my best to answer any questions.
Well, I'm not sure you can answer this, but let me pose the question. One of the items that is up for consideration is that the TIFA is to increase growth in the city. Now, growth isn't a static thing. This continues. We've built upon the work that was done. I think we can see that there's an increase in property values due to this, increase in revenue from the businesses that now enjoy this. But to say we're done means we have to cut it off and say, okay, we don't need any more growth. Should we contribute to have more growth? I think that is the question we want to look at this point.
That is for your consideration. So I'm not dodging your question.
No,
but what I'm
why.
saying is that the Attorney General has ruled that the four components are all. They're ands. You have to have them all. So your question is this, Commissioner Avery, is do you have an area that you could define that has a decline in property values as we're sitting here, that you need to increase the property valuations, eliminate the causes of that decline, and therefore promote growth? That's the way the wording is. And at the time you established this, I think all of those were met in the three areas. You had some severe, significant issues going on in the areas that you designated. And what you did was wonderful, was you injected money into those areas and you stopped the property value decline, right? And you promoted growth in those areas. And job well done. And the question for the City Commission is have we accomplished our purpose? That's for you to decide. I don't have that answer for you. Nor have I given you an opinion on that, because I've only given you an opinion on what the law says. But the termination language is when you believe that you've completed those purposes, you shall mandatory terminate, dissolve TIFA. So.
Mrs. Lepley.
Okay. You know, I'm going to vote against this, and I want to tell you why.
You shock me.
I do. I have spoken to 6 different attorneys.
Six?
I have 6.
7.
I have visited 7. Yeah, I talked to you. And I have visited 4 TIFAs and a DDA and talked to their people there. And I'm just going to tell you, what I think, because you talked about this is what you believe, so I'm going to tell you what I believe. We gave up our DDA, our Downtown Development Authority, in favor of a TIFA, which means Tax Increment Finance Authority, shortly after the law was enacted by the state of Michigan way back in 1986. Both of these, DDAs and TIFAs, and there's, 11 or 12 more tax capture vehicles. These are both vehicles for the capture of monies that we otherwise do not get, along with a portion of our own monies that must be dedicated for investment, which means that cities have to take some money to make money. And if you don't, there's a difference between spending money and investing. Spending money is where the budget comes into, but we do not have a vehicle for money to make money, to invest, so forth and so on in projects in the town. Through the careful selection, investigation, and appropriate approval or disapproval of projects for the betterment of the city. I need to say a word about laws. I have been involved in the writing of laws in many different places. The writing of laws is not an exact science. You identify an issue, gather information, study existing laws, and try to cover all sides of that issue to make things better. The day after a law is written and passed, somebody comes up with an exception to it or circumstances that were missed. This necessitates an appeals process, such as we do with our Zoning Board of Appeals. The original TIFA law has been very well explained by our able city attorney, but the TIFA law has also accumulated over 30 years of exceptions, appeals, and practice, some of it formal and recorded, and some of it verbal advice and practice supported by the sanction of the state of Michigan by its granting of extensions without question, one of which we received just a short time ago. The state has worked with TIFA boards with no threat of punishment. There are no punishments because everyone concerned is benefiting. Our TIFA board has never failed to seek, nor ever been denied, consultation and advice from attorneys representing the state of Michigan, the Michigan Municipal League, and the County of St. Clair or the City of Marine City. I'm old enough and have been around long enough to know that the state of Michigan sent an attorney from the state treasury that came and had a sit down with our former city manager and our former city attorney, at that time it was Mr. Yocum, and TIFA members, and there was no pressure from the state nor any advice that said anything that we were doing needed to be ended, and we were encouraged to continue our TIFA, which we were told was doing an excellent job. Many other Michigan municipalities have kept their TIFAs healthy and continue to benefit from the progress they bring. They work, therefore the state encourages them. The state is also in the process of rewriting its TIFA laws as we speak. And there is a real danger here for Marine City, and this is it, that we be left without any vehicle for investment, both outside and inside, in the near future. We have been asked of volunteers for them to come up with some sort of a data presentation, which in my opinion is more like, okay, prophesy, tell us exactly what you're going to do and exactly what data we need to hear. There is no reason to end our TIFA now. There is no pressure from the state. The only reason that this has even been brought up is because somebody from the commission demanded that we take a look at this and has wanted the TIFA to end for years. There is no reason to end this TIFA now. I propose that it would be to our advantage, and remember, it is not up to us whether or not we can continue our TIFA and apply for an extension. That's not up to us, that's up to the state. there's no reason why we cannot apply for an extension for our TIFAs, for our TIFA, with the understanding, I believe, that the TIFA board and the city commission investigate all available tax capture vehicles to ensure the continuation of our progress with no possibility of discouraging or blocking future investment opportunities for the city of Marine City. Remember, this idea that we have to end our TIFA now and not apply for an extension came out of the city commission. Nobody sitting on this city commission here, nobody sitting up here has TIFA experience. The TIFA people, who again are all volunteers, who are not paid, were not included in those discussions until I insisted that they be included in it. And I think that we need to apply for an extension and do a more thorough investigation of how to go forward and what the best vehicle for investment, both inside and outside the city, should be. So I am going to vote no.
What are you gonna vote on? You don't even have a
Well,
proposal.
if this comes up for a vote, I'm going to vote no on it.
Okay.
Wouldn't the state ask us for information to continue?
You'd have to support your application. But
Which we,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
you're right, you could apply, you have to have some support, you have to have some supporting language in your application, which you've done before. And
Sure.
you've been extended, I think, to December 15th of.
Right, right.
And then we kind of jockeyed one of them so they would all be December 15th, right? Just
Right.
made them all equal, yeah, which was wise, I think.
Yes, and I think it's important that we extend this and take more time with this and talk to some. You know, I can remember sitting in that office, and the attorneys tend to, well, don't quote me, but nobody is going to do anything. Nobody has ever, well, the other thing is they're surprised because nobody has ever voluntarily given up a TIFA before.
Right, but I want to make it clear, your charge to me was to tell you the speeding limit, not to tell you if you were going to get caught.
Yeah, I would, no,
Right?
No, that's not what I'm talking about at all.
No, but I mean,
Again,
my work was to tell you what TIFA says.
Yes, and you did that.
Right.
But in every instance where there were exceptions and the state sanctioned those by approving extensions, they sanctioned what was going on. So there is no violation of the law by extending the
but most of
TIFA.
those were in, you had to extend them because you can't close them if they have debt.
Well,
Well, actually, you can.
Did
In
TIFA
fact,
get-
ask Flint.
Yeah, well, yeah. Flint's there's a lot
they're
of
in
questions there.
debt.
Yeah.
Did TIFA get an opinion letter that, on this, that a lawyer would write and say, put his name on an opinion letter?
They put their name on it. What they basically said was, what the attorney said, and the one that Tifa talked to was, there is no reason why you cannot extend, but you have no legal, that the Tifa board has no legal basis to stop the commission. In other words, they can't stop the commission.
That the
But
decision
there's-
lies with the commission.
Yeah, but there's no
I see,
reason
I
why we can't ask for an extension and perhaps do a better job. I don't care if it's 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, do a better job of preparing, because this is going to be a big transition. You remember how happy we were when all these people lined up to come in and talk to us about where they could park their RVs. We just loved handling all that. Well, anybody that has a need for funding that also promotes the city of Marine City has been going to the TIFA board. If you do not extend your TIFA board, then they're all going to be in here. We do not have the funding to continue to support some of these projects. And I think we have to, as a board, we have to be thinking about what is the best in the long run for the city of Marine City. And I think it would be very detrimental to, right now, because we're not prepared. And remember, the TIFA board is volunteers. I would like to see you working with the Tifa board and perhaps some other attorneys on how to do this in a way that secures an investment vehicle for the city of Marine City before we close down the Tifas. I mean, the Tifas are gonna go eventually, one way or the other. The state is trying to rewrite those laws now. But I don't wanna see us left with no vehicle for investment because we thought we had to close this down now. We do not have to. That's one of the things all the attorneys were clear on. You don't have to do this. You can apply for an extension and see, and then begin to investigate.
Yeah, just so the public is clear, and I, you know, when conversations about these types of programs go on, you get an impression that there's a third party out there who's delivering money into Tifa. That's not true, right? We all know that's not true. It's your tax dollars anyways that are funding Tifa, but you're getting a little more because you're not sending it to a couple other locations. There is no federal government money that funds Tifa. It's your tax dollars that fund Tifa. So you will continue to get those tax dollars, only not as much, because the part that you're currently capturing, like for example, that would otherwise go to the county, will now go to the county, right? I mean, so
Right.
I just don't want the public to have an impression we're going to make a phone call tomorrow to some third-party benefactor and say, hey, stop sending us money. It's money we're taxing anyways. No one's taxes are going to go up, and no one's taxes are going to go down, right?
True.
Right. Okay, so just so, anyways, that's all I have.
Where is all this documentation for all these other lawyers? I mean, we have our lawyers' documentation, but I don't see anything, and I'm not gonna go by hearsay from
That was going to be my
lawyers.
question to the city manager or the attorney. We saw in a recent expenditure from Tifa in their minutes that they approved $1,000 for legal services for Tifa. What has the city received in that $1,000? Have we received anything?
To
Any
this
document?
date, all we have received is a bill, I think in the amount of $200 from John Starren. I have not seen any written report or anything.
That's the only expenditure out of that, and that would be for just consultation services, presumably their time to
As I
discuss
said,
the
I
matter.
haven't seen any documentation or anything.
But we have not
from him.
received any written opinion
No.
to support or defer
No.
anything that we've received to date. We've have a very detailed sum of information for a long period of time now, and it's not just this meeting. And people have been engaged at different levels of this, and we still have not received any dissenting facts. No one's going to doubt that a lot of everyone that served on the TIFA, again, volunteers, have done a good job, and again, people that, when they were serving, did the best that they could with the knowledge they had at that time. And as we heard from anyone who spoke tonight, certainly that's just more information and more demonstration that TIFA has done many wonderful things for the city. So I don't think that we up here would debate anything that would say TIFA was never good for the city. But again, that's been 30 years. A lot of what we've heard tonight is from 2005, 2007 to now. Most of our TIFA was from almost the year I was born to about 2005. So there's a good deal of time, beyond that as well. So we have to look at it bigger. What's that? It's not the age card, it's a fact, right? 1980s, right? So we got to keep that in mind as well. So I always like to look at facts and not get caught up in emotions. You can't totally separate everything. Certainly everyone has an opinion. Anyone through the course of Marine City history has had a different experience with TIFA or various TIFA project. I would be the first to say that, many, many good things. I would say the dominant work from TIFA has been a benefit to the city. But what we need to focus on is the actual facts that we have received based on the legal opinions and the time that both boards, the TIFA board, our board, and as Commissioner Lepley said, we're not TIFA experts, but that's also why we asked for legal information. And that's also why TIFA presumably spent $1,000 and did a lot of legwork to receive information. And so we've had time to do that. I feel we've had ample time to solicit that. I'm not against a different project of finding another revenue source or investment source, but in my mind, that is a different project than this. That's my mind.
I'm just going to say, too, they did issue a legal opinion, which was basically you have no legal basis. This is the city commission's decision, but also in that there's no reason why you have to do this. And I'm afraid that it's been presented to us in such a way that said you have to.
Well,
You
I'd
have
like-
to shut this TIFA down.
I'd like to
And
see
we
that
do
in
not.
writing.
And we do not.
I'd
Well,
rather see that. in
there's a
writing.
lot of things I'd like to see, and I've been trying to get a hold of the state treasurer attorney that came in and sat with us, and also Mr. Yocum. There's a lot of things we need to know yet. What I don't want to see, and this has nothing to do with the motion, although, you know.
There is no motion right now.
There's no motion about it. What is the best thing for the city going forward? And right now, if we start moving on this now, we could end up with no investment vehicle for the city of Marine City. And cities who are moving forward have an investment vehicle. If TIFA is being worked on by the state and we need to take a good look at that, we need to be looking at other things too. And I do not feel like we have enough information. And you talk about this being a long time. Well, it's a long time for you. But when you're working with volunteers and they're trying to get a hold of an attorney who only charged $200, they allowed for $1,000, and also 6 other attorneys that, like I said, I myself talked to, they all give you that same thing. You should not voluntarily give up your TIFA. You should extend it and find another vehicle and be ready ahead of time before this ends.
Well,
So
John Starren is an attorney I know. He's a wonderful, wonderful lawyer. I would love to see his opinion, but I haven't. I haven't seen it. He's a very nice and competent lawyer. Rochester, right? He's a Rochester attorney.
We've met, TIFA have met their goals. We've all said they've met their goals and they did a good job. But the 30 years was there, they extended it twice already. The money is taken, the tax money is captured by them. The money that they capture, that it raised the tax values. It says once you get the tax values up, then you must get rid of your TIFA. But that money goes back into the general fund, and you can use it in all the districts. You can use it, it doesn't, right now a TIFA only can be used in a TIFA district.
Correct.
So if we had it back in the general fund, then we could work on streets and we could work on sewers, and we've had money that isn't set in stones for something else.
But there, you know, make no mistake, there is a loss of a sum of money, not all of it,
No.
but there is a loss of sum of money. There is a net loss of, if you're looking at dollars to dollars, whether it be in a TIFA capture or in a general fund, factually, we do have a net loss of money too. So just
But how
for
much
people
more-
following along,
How
because
much more can you do in the 3 districts?
I'm not debating that, but there is a net loss of money in that.
The concept of TIFA was that you would come out ahead because your
Improvements.
taxes have gone up, and that fills the void of, that's the
Right.
theory of the capture.
And there's no doubt that this is why the state has granted these extensions, because they're getting more money, the county's getting more money, you know, it's working. I mean, this is why they've granted those extensions. And what I'm saying is we need to work with our TIFA people, and they were already concerned about the state it being in the process of rewriting those laws. But meanwhile, they have created, I think, 11 different tax capture opportunities. We haven't looked at any of those. I don't like the sense that you have to do this now. No, we don't have to do this now. We can apply for an extension. There's no reason why we cannot. And if the state decides that, okay, you're not meeting our criteria, we're not going to grant it, that's their call. That's their call. But there's no reason why we can't ask. There's no reason why we cannot ask for an extension and give ourselves some more time. And also, with the caveat that we need to continue to investigate, along with the city manager and yourself and the TIFA members, investigate what would be the best vehicle for tax capture for the city of Marine City going forward. I don't know that, and I have scrambled. I was on vacation, people were on vacation. You know, it looks like, you know, oh, we've had this long time. No, we haven't. For people who are working as volunteers, have, you know, vacations and so forth, so on, they need more time, and I think that we should apply for an extension on our TIFAs and go to work on this with the understanding that eventually the TIFA needs to go away. But now, boom, 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 we have to decide today. I'm not for that. I think that's...
Do I have a motion? Well,
We're not
okay.
finished discussing here.
Well, you should have a motion on the floor before you discuss.
Well, we didn't, so.
We didn't.
We're gonna go both sides on this. Go ahead.
All right. So I've been involved in these for a long time, and I've looked at them for a long time, and I took copies of the last two TIFA meetings, and I listened to them, the audios of these meetings. And I think there's a lot of confusion on the part of our TIFA board. One thing is, when you get on a board, usually you have an obligation to try to learn about that board, understand what you're voting on, read up on all your plans and whatever information that you can obtain. But I don't think that's always happened. So this is what I heard out of the last two meeting minutes. First, the TIFA seems to feel that closing the TIFAs is a political issue only. That was stated. This isn't a political issue. We're trying to follow the law. This was thoroughly explained by our city attorney using all the state law information in a large binder that he provided us. Then there was discussion that TIFA should be converted to a DDA. I know we also discussed that you cannot do that. So that's out. They claim we are going to lose administrative costs from the TIFAs. It's going to be a financial burden. That's still our tax money. It's going to go in our general fund. We're not going to lose that money. The only money we lose is what goes to the state, the county, the college. Currently, there's state law changes in effect that they haven't voted on, but they're looking at to let those people opt out because they're losing all their tax money that they want. If they opt out, the only thing we're going to collect is our money. The only capture that would be left is our tax dollars would go into TIFA. So it doesn't make any sense to keep them. Then the claim that the attorney's information was opinion, not law. That's not true either. Then I heard in there that that they had not had a rebuttal to our lawyer's opinion, which I don't understand, you know. So now we spend more TIFA money on a second attorney, so it's almost like we're going to pay to find out an attorney who's going to change the opinion so that we can keep this. So I don't know how many attorneys we have to go through. Then they claim that no one in the state of Michigan has ever dissolved a TIFA. That's not true. Then they said we didn't get an opinion on continuing the TIFA, only dissolving the TIFA. And that's not true either. You explained everything about how this works. Then there was a claim we violated the Open Meetings Act because we went in closed session to discuss it. Well, that's not true either. We followed the law with our attorney. We're allowed to do that. Then there was the accusation that no member of the TIFA board was invited to the closed meetings. We were trying to have those meetings so that we all understood it first, per our attorney, and then the same exact information was all explained by our attorney and provided to the TIFA board, the same thing that we had. So that's not true. And one thing I've noticed is that when he gave us all this information, most of the TIFA board members hadn't even read or even looked at the actual TIFA documents until they got this package. So then I heard that the TIFA chair said we made him feel unwelcome when we invited him to our closed session, which that wasn't true. We tried to bring him in here so that he could talk and he had every opportunity to ask any questions. Then they think that the city commission is being misled by our city attorney on closing the TIFAs. That's not true. He's trying to tell us how this whole thing works. And we had a subcommittee, and some of us were on it, and we explained to them, if you can come up with a process and you can show us hard facts, to continue the Tifa, then do it. We asked for that information. One of the responses was, well, we don't want to do that. That's a lot of work. Well, yeah, it's a lot of work. But if you truly are passionate about keeping the Tifa, then you would think you would want to do that. So then, it's been apparent that a certain group refuses to believe our attorney and the extremely detailed analysis that he conducted into the Tifas. They have even wasted Tifa money on an additional attorney's opinion. I understand the opinion came back the same, but we have not been provided with any documentation, so I don't go by hearsay. The Tifas paid an extreme amount of money over the years on projects that were overpriced. I'm not saying some of them weren't valuable, but a lot of them were overpriced. $750,000 was used for 300 Broadway plus a grant to do the portion of the exterior. The bricks are again starting to come off of the exterior along with a huge amount of the spalled bricks that still need to be replaced. It's still unoccupied after 12 years. $500,000 of that Tifa money was used improperly. It came out of a Tifa that states that you can't pull money out of that Tifa and use it out of that district. Yet, it was used for a building in the district, and even though the taxpayers didn't want the money used there. We even spent $30,000 at one time to rent Christmas decorations. They claim that they alone are responsible for downtown's development, yet it was actually the fact that we still had an old downtown and the timing was right for development from the business owners who chose to come here and were already here. The streetscape was put in on Broadway, but not the design that was approved by the commission at the time. A different design was used, and now it's been nothing but a problem for the people who drive through that area. Then we have the police department. The building was purchased, was overpriced, and in severely poor condition, and also too small. So a ridiculous amount of money was again used to complete it. These are all facts. You can go in and look at the minutes and look at how much was spent. We have a group of people who say that since the state of Michigan hasn't come after them for all the improper spending and the fact that it's no longer needed to improve the neighborhoods, that we should continue it anyway. The people on the commission and the boards take an oath to follow the law. This fight to keep the Tifas going is very troubling. The majority of that money belongs to the city in the form of property taxes. A portion of the colleges and the county's money will now be returned to them. We will then continue to collect our portion of the taxes that the city is needed to operate. It will no longer be used for people's pet projects. The money will go into our general fund, not the Tifa's budget. It even gets a layer of government out of the way. They even wanted the owner of the Kmart Plaza to be cited for blight when they wanted to try to force Tifa money on him, which he didn't want, to fix up his plaza. That's a real nice way to treat a business owner. All this nonsense needs to stop, and we need to proceed to close the Tifas per the law's requirements. They have had ample time to give us detailed information on why they should continue in the law, and we have yet received nothing. So let's go back to doing it. Here's the only things that we can use. This is the list from the Tifa documents, the 3 Tifas. So these are all the projects that are listed in those documents.
That was done in your 1 through 4 analysis.
Correct. So we had the list. The majorities, except for the ones I have in yellow, they're all done. The only thing left are tree maintenance, park landscape improvements, the facade improvements, EDA fees, wastewater treatment improvements, EDA fees, and land acquisitions. That's all that are in these plans. The plans have never been updated with all these other projects, which is the way it's supposed to work. So none of that was ever done. And the tax values are up. So we need to just follow the process, get rid of it. If you want a new area, start a DDA, start something else. But to keep dragging this out, just because you don't want to get rid of the money, is ridiculous.
Mrs. Lepley.
Well, first you talk about not being emotional, and then I have to listen to, he felt this, she felt that, they were passionate about this. These are all feelings. And relitigating the history of Tifa is not a part of our dilemma at this point in time. And I do know that from the time that I was on the city commission, that every decision that they made, they sought legal opinions, and Mr. Yakum was a part of that. Again, the Tifa law had become very fluid, and the state just wanted it to continue to work. And when it does not work for them, then they're probably going to put an end to it. So that's something that's going to happen from the state. They will be, at some point, putting an end to the TIFAs and rewriting and come up with new ones, which I've talked about too. Again, if you want a written opinion from another attorney, we're going to have to do some funding for that. But at this point in time, I do not see that we have the proper information to vote on no longer capturing monies until we have some of these other questions answered. And again, when you, in talking to attorneys, nobody came from the state and said you have to shut your TIFAs down now. We're looking at that, and I don't think it's a good idea. It's not a decision that has to do with, and the other thing is too, we did after we had, we had to work, and I, again, was on the commission at that time, we had to make a decision on whether or not to go forward with City Hall, and there was a petition that was done, and this is after the elections. Nobody wanted to have their taxes raised to do City Hall, and I still have the copies of this petition. There's 12,842 signatures. 1,177, yeah, a couple of them went down. Signatures. They all wanted City Hall restored, but they didn't want their taxes raised to do it. That's when we formed Friends of City Hall, so that we could get outside funding for that building. And that building is not at issue here today. We can go back through all of that, through the votes and so forth and so on. And I would like to say something too. Friends of City Hall has put thousands and thousands of dollars in that building, and we have never asked the city for anything. That is ridiculous to think. Friends of City Hall will be fine with or without TIFA or anything else. What I want to see is a really good, solid plan. If you want to start a DDA and you want to get that started, fine. Let's get that in place. If you want to try another vehicle for tax capture, fine. But right now, we got nothing in place. And we also have no legal reason why we cannot ask for an extension and get some of this ironed out. And actually, I would like to see the TIFA board working with you and learning about all their options. Again, these are volunteers. These are not attorneys. And I cannot speak for some of them, but if they had been included, that you were looking at this point in time, they would have loved to have come in and talked about their experience and how you would sit down with attorney after attorney and they would say, you're doing fine. You're doing fine. To get a written legal opinion out of the state treasurer, I mean, we went to Lansing and they won't do it. They just say, hey, you're fine. And so that's like pulling teeth. And the TIFA board put up with that over and over and over again. Can we do this? Should we do this? Are we doing this right? Hey, looks good to me. And Mr. Yakum, I can still see him doing that and saying, hey, we're doing fine. Let's go ahead with that. Every step of the way, this was consulted. There was never a time when this TIFA board did anything like that. What I'm asking and what I believe that we should do, and maybe I'll make this a motion, I move that we apply for a 2-year extension for our TIFA with the understanding that the TIFA board and city commission investigate all available tax capture vehicles to ensure the continuation of our progress with no possibility of discouraging or blocking future investment. It's a motion.
I would support that motion.
Yes, Lisa.
How much money are we going to continue to waste to fight for something that eventually is gonna close.
You know,
You've
it's
had the,
insulting that you
Hey.
talk about volunteers. This is why can't you put people on?
Mr. Jenkins.
I'm not
I allow-
talking about them, Mr.
Point of order.
Lisa, no.
You have a motion and a second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any more discussion?
I'm trying. A lot of this isn't true. You have a letter even in here, which I can't even read, that warned of how things could happen and taxpayers could bring suit for not doing things properly. I don't know how long we gotta take to do this. You can go into the tax rolls right now. The one item, what does it say? You have to decline in property values. You can't prove that we have any decline in property values. There's one of your items right there. All 4 conditions have to be met. He keeps telling you that. So if you can't prove that we have decline in property values, how are you gonna prove anything? How are you gonna get the thing? You say eliminate the causes of the decline. We don't have any. Everything has been done. You need to just get over it and move on and come up with a new plan and do
I'm
another
fine.
area if you want.
That's the state's call.
It's not the state's call.
It is. If we apply and they say,
You have
You
to
can't
prove
have
it
it?
though for the state. So how long is it gonna take you to come up with this information? 5 years? 10 years?
you don't, the extension, we just got one. What was it, been within the last year and a half that we got
Well,
one?
we got, if I may,
Yes, sir.
we got one extension to align the expiration date of December 15th of 18 to bring Tiffle 1 into line with Tiffle 3.
Well, that's nothing.
No, it's still an extension. And I'm done.
Yeah, and I just don't see any reason
that
why
doesn't
we
mean
cannot
anything. I mean-
apply for that extension.
It just puts all 3 in
That's all.
line, which means we have to close all 3 at the same time. That's all
Or,
it does.
or extend all three at the same time.
Mr. Simpson.
So I certainly would be the last person to say that investment is not a good thing. And all along, I've said that we should be looking at other investment opportunities and vehicles. I don't know that 2 years is a length of time. That seems excessive to me. We have, 6 months until the natural end of TIFA, as it's scheduled right now. What's that?
Year from the summer.
Yeah.
You have a year and
Yeah, after 18, yeah. Well, what I'd be proposing is something more like 6 months. I mean, I can't imagine, we've done all this legwork so far, and what I'm hearing is reasons not to vote on TIFA right now is people didn't have time, which I would then say we should rely on our city staff to do that, because ultimately, we appreciate the TIFA board and all their work, but if the city commission's the one that has to do that, that should go through city staff, because they have the time, and we can allocate their time, and we can give direction in a little bit more formal process there. And I see no harm in delaying a decision for TIFA, but I wouldn't be a fan of delaying it for 2 years. Unless city staff or city attorney has an opinion on the fact that 6 months might be too brief of a time to research.
We currently have until December 15th of 18.
Right.
So I don't know, how many months is that? That's more,
Like 13?
I mean, you have
But
some-
I also think that we've had so much work right now that kicking it down for another year or two just postpones all of this, because people will say, oh, well, we don't have to rush that decision. There should be a sense of urgency. I was asking for a TIFA opinion or education for my first 3 years on this board before we got any information about it, because there was zero sense of urgency. Now that we have a sense of urgency, now that we have legal opinions, I don't think that 2 years, in my mind, is a reasonable amount of time. I do think investment's important. I'm not opposed to getting information about another vehicle for that investment before we make our final decision on TIFA, but I don't know that I can support a 2-year extension on that.
If we ask for a 2-year extension, that doesn't forbid us from going into the process to shut it down.
But I don't know that we need to spend the city resources and staff time in supporting a 2-year extension when that time and resources could be spent researching other investment vehicles. That's why I would suggest 2 years would be a long time.
We have a motion and support on the floor. I'd like to call for a vote.
You want to reread the motion, please?
The motion is that the City of Marine City apply for a 2-year extension for our TIFA with the understanding that the TIFA Board and the City Commission investigate all available tax capture vehicles to ensure the continuation of our progress with no possibility of discouraging or blocking future investment opportunities for the City of Marine City.
Does that mean that you're asking for looking at other sources such as a DDA or something else?
Exactly, every opportunity.
I don't know why that
Every
affects this,
vehicle.
though.
Okay, we've got a call for, you still on support, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
No, I'd like a roll call vote, please.
Oh.
Commissioner Hendrick,
No.
Commissioner Clausen,
No.
Commissioner Lutman,
Yes,
Commissioner Simpson,
No.
Commissioner Turner.
Yes.
Mayor Vandevach,
No.
Commissioner Avery,
Yes.
motion fails.
Okay.
I want to make a motion to postpone our final decision in regards to TIFA for 8 months while city staff can work on researching options for any and all investment vehicles that might help provide similar investment to Marine City as TIFA currently does.
Is that,
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Let me make sure we're on the same, we're all on the same page of what's your agenda tonight.
Yes.
Not that I think I know where you're headed, but the agenda tonight is not to terminate TIFA.
Right, the taxation.
Tonight, the only thing you were considering was stopping the taxing plan of TIFA. TIFA will continue to pay its bills and to fund its projects that are on the books. That's why you had the analysis over the first 4 months. I wanted to give you plenty of time to look at all the numbers. The numbers shake out, you have about twice as much money as you need to pay your bills. The only thing you're looking at tonight in the August meeting is, do you want to go, there's 2 things. There's the TIFA authority, the TIFA, and there's the taxing plan. Tonight, we were just going to talk about the taxing plan. Do you want to stop the capture? Because you have enough.
And again, that's why I'm making a motion to say that we don't make a decision, a final decision right now, while we can.
I know, but
Yeah,
your motion, you actually said
Okay.
to terminate TIFA.
No, okay.
You're talking about the taxing
My
plan.
apologies, and
Yeah. No, I-
my intention is to say that we
I
shouldn't
know.
make a final decision, and I appreciate your correction and information, is we shouldn't make any final determination about TIFA, whether it's taxation plan or the future of TIFA, until we can research any and all future investment vehicles. But I would like to put a 8-month time clock on that right now.
support.
I understand, I just want to.
No, and I appreciate that, because being particular is important.
Okay, so my question is, you want these to continue. Are we gonna have enough time, if we have to close them out, if we go that long, will we still have enough time in the process to get it closed out?
You can terminate your taxation plan anytime up to the ending of TIFA.
So the only thing that you're gonna ask for is that you want, again, to look into alternatives. That's what you're looking for.
Before making our decision. I mean, that's what I'm hearing from many people today. You know, yeah, we certainly have that, but that's what I'm
So-
hearing from people today. And I don't see that there's a hazard in waiting and getting additional information and using professional staff and services to do that.
I don't have any problem that anybody wants to research getting something else. Okay, I don't have any problem with that. But this one is basically done, so I don't know why we need to continue to not get away with it. We can still pursue alternatives, regardless of whether we close this out. It doesn't stop us from going towards alternatives.
It doesn't, but this is what I have heard from the general consensus coming along, is that there's that what-if question, that since we don't have to do it, what if there's a negative impact of stopping? And I don't necessarily know that there's an answer to that.
Mr. Avery's got, Mr. Avery.
Perhaps, I propose that we make an amendment to this motion that we do not cease the taxing plan during this period.
I thought that was inherent in my motion.
That was
I
what I
did.
was trying to clarify.
Yeah, okay, I wasn't sure, but,
But yeah,
okay.
that
That's-
certainly was the intention of my motion. If that was not clear, I would be willing to amend that motion.
Mr. Avey, that's a good point. Let's just, and I know I'm beating, I just want to make sure you understand, and if I'm being like a teacher, I apologize. What Ms. Lepley was trying to do was to take the 18 date and push it off 2 years. And that failed, right? What he's saying is, let's take the taxation plan, which you were going to discuss tonight, and adjourn its ceasing for 8 months while we study the other mechanisms under Michigan law that could replace, I think, the capture of TIFA. That's the
Okay.
theory, right?
Yeah,
And Ms. Lepley had said there's 11. I happen to think there's 9, so she's probably wrong. No, I'm just kidding. I think there's a host of them. Let's agree there's a host. So what he's saying is, let's study those by postponing the cessation of the taxing mechanism. Okay, so we got, I know I'm being redundant, but we got that?
oh,
Go
okay, I wasn't finished, I don't know whether I should,
ahead.
all right. I would like to point out that we are depending on government, larger entities of government, to make a decision on this matter for everybody, not just for us, in 8 months. I have many years of experience dealing with government, and I would suggest that 8 months is just the blink of an eye.
If I can, Mr. Avery, my intention wasn't to allow the state to decide that. My intention was for this motion to prompt the city and our staff to put a good deal of effort in bringing us information so we can make an informed decision. I'm not waiting on the state to decide what the heck they're going to do with TIFA, because waiting on the state to do anything has proven to be ill-advised at best. So I'm not waiting for an opinion from the state, because I think it literally could be forever before we get anything. They've proven that already, that they stopped these things in the early 80s, and it's now decades later, and we still don't have great direction from them. So my intention was that the city put our resources into seeing what's out there and bringing information back to this board.
One question, if we went with a new vehicle, a DDA, for example, that would have no bearing on starting, closing, extending this. That's a whole new device and a whole new.
It's a new animal.
So there's no actual, because we're not going to be able to move money from one to another. They have to be
You'll have to
closed down,
You'll have to close this out.
cease, and start from scratch.
Correct.
But what happens is we lose that opportunity to extend our TIFAs. If we close this down, they are going to have to go. What we're keeping for 8 months is the opportunity to have more choices, one of which could be, perhaps the best thing for the city of Marine City could be to apply for an extension. And we would lose that if we vote to stop the capture at this point. So I would
I see what you're
be
saying,
in
yep.
support of this.
Mr. Clausen?
Well, if you stop the tax plan, the taxing plan, the money would still stay with the city. It would just go in the general fund.
Correct.
We were just saying that we're
Not all
not
the money,
putting
though.
into TIFA anymore.
Not all the money, though.
Right.
Correct, and the reason we had the first floor meeting was to determine whether we had sufficient money to meet the current obligations, and you're about 2 to 1.
And if it
That was the point of the first floor analysis.
And if you stop it, that money can go in the general fund, and it's not just designated for TIFA, and it could go for street repair, sewers, whatever the city's general fund needs the money for.
Correct.
Yes.
So I guess I don't understand why we have to stop TIFAs, when if we're gonna start something totally new, it's a new animal, new collection, new everything, it has no bearing on this money. It's gotta go one way or another.
What I'm hearing though from a couple of people up here and from folks in the crowd, people on the TIFA board, is that they want a time to be able to weigh in on that and do research. And I don't see that, and I don't disagree with you about they're two separate tracks. I've been saying that all along, but I also don't see a hazard in delaying that decision and giving time and appreciation to those folks who have spent time already to bring more information. They are really two separate things. I've been saying that all along, but again, I don't see a hazard in delaying that decision.
But we asked for that information, and you were sitting right there when. we
I
got
don't
the-
disagree with you, but based on what we've heard tonight, people are taking exception to that, and they felt that they didn't have that time. So we asked people to come up and volunteer on boards and spend time here and work with the city and appreciate our decisions. So I guess part of my motion is an offering to those individuals that we appreciate their time and continued efforts, that we will look at maybe the bigger picture of investment, because that's also what I'm hearing. You know, people are saying 1,000 different things about 1,000 different projects, but overall, what are they saying? Investment, that's what's important, and this is part of a greater picture of that. So I don't think there's a hazard in doing that, where there is a potential hazard on voting on the taxation plan right now.
Regardless, you're still gonna end up closing one.
I don't disagree, but again, it's
And I don't have a problem if they wanna do it, but when we asked them about doing it, we got the pushback that it was too much work and.
but again, that's why the motion included directing city staff and using city resources, because I think that could be more efficient.
Give him his chance.
Really?
Yes.
Cool. All right, so we've had a lot of discussion on this. We've had a lot of personal opinion on this. We've heard repeat several times. We have a motion on the floor. We have a second. I'd like to call the question on that motion.
Me too. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Clausen.
No.
Commissioner Loughlin.
Yes.
Commissioner Simpson.
Yes.
Commissioner Turner.
Yes.
Mayor Vandembosh.
No.
Commissioner Avery.
Yes.
Commissioner Hendrick.
No.
Motion carries.
All right, we're moving on then. Moving on to new business, facility use mutual operation agreement for East China School District.
Ready?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
This is the annual facility use operating agreement that we get from East China School District regarding the recreation programs that we have at their facility. None of the pricing has changed from the previous year. You can see that the recreation director, Lynn, put together the programs and time periods that we'll be requesting throughout the year for the program. And this is just up for your approval.
I make a motion to approve the facility use mutual operating agreement between the East China School District and the City of Marine City as presented to us.
Support.
Any other questions or concerns on it? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Loughlin.
Yes.
Commissioner Simpson.
Yes.
Commissioner Turner.
Yes.
Mayor Vandembosh.
Yes.
Commissioner Avery.
Yes.
Commissioner Hendrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Clausen.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on to trash receptacles.
So, as you probably are aware, we've got some of the trash cans in town that are either undersized and/or falling apart. We've had some of them in excess of 15 years. Mike Ittridge, DPW Director, put together some information for some trash cans for consideration. This has not been a competitive bidding process, though we did get a three different bids for different types of trash cans. Each of them have their own pros and cons. One thing that really is important is the size. Apparently about 36 gallons, I believe, is about the ideal size because that gives them the sufficient amount of time to be able to service those so that they don't get overfilled. Some of the ones that we have in town currently are actually oversized, and those are some of the ones that are in need of replacement as well as some additional ones. At this time, we're requesting 5 of those. The one that is being recommended is actually the thickest grade trash can of the 3. I probably want to check with the attorney on this. I'm not sure if, because we have 3 bids, we need to go through and waive the competitive bidding process or not.
I think you do.
Okay. So that would be 2 motions then, waiving the competitive bidding and making a motion to approve purchase of one of the models.
I move that we waive the competitive bidding for the trash cans.
Support.
Any other questions? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Simpson.
Yes.
Commissioner Turner.
Yes.
Mayor Vandembosch.
No.
Commissioner Avery.
Yes.
Commissioner Hendrick.
No.
Commissioner Clausen.
Yes.
Commissioner Leftley.
Yes.
Motion fails.
I voted no only for the point of $1,000, almost $1,000. I know, they just seem steep for the cost of a trash can. And I do like the look of that trash can. Mike, yeah, please.
The only reason why I want to stay with Victor Stanley, we've been with them for a very long time. All those garbage cans along the river are 10 to 15 years old. They look like they're brand new. These ones, we know nothing about.
Right.
The powder coated on these Victor Stanley ones are etched before they're kind of like a, what you call electric,
Right.
pulled on. They stay on. They're good, hard garbage cans. I will do whatever the commission directs me to do. That's why I recommended the Victor Stanley.
One potential thing here that maybe we could decide on tonight to move forward for doing the competitive bidding is if we can decide on a type of trash can so that we can get some competitive bids based on that.
Well, it's really hard to get competitive bids off the internet.
Right.
You can't. I mean, it's.
People sell what they sell, and that's it.
Right.
And the quantities we're shopping in does not offer much of a discount.
Exactly.
You may want your bidding process to be also the quality. You're not in a race to the cheapest if the quality suffers. So make sure you're bidding the same quality. You have a quality that you're looking for.
Exactly.
Maybe no one else makes that quality, but
And that's, if you read the description on each one of those cans, you'll see how Victor Stanley is built superior to the other 2.
so use that as the basis of what you're looking for.
There's nothing else out there.
Lisa.
Then you could come back and say that.
Last time we bought these and we paid that kind of money for them, there was a huge response from the community of the price.
Yep.
I found another one out there. There's one out on the bike path. It's rotting.
It's at the shop. You come look at it. It's not a Victor Stanley.
But all I'm saying is I can't believe that usually there's like a manufacturer for some of these. Here's another one here. Looks pretty much the same. I'd still go, or maybe we look at something totally different, you know? I mean, I don't think that they have
You give me a
to.
direction to go. We desperately need garbage cans uptown.
Right.
I know,
We do.
we need them, yes, but I don't think we need them at $1,000 a piece. And I think we can find some other models. Even St. Clair uses a different type of model. They actually are bigger. They don't go anywhere, and they're a lot more competitively priced at half the price. I just think we have to come up with something a little bit better than to spend $900 on a garbage can.
That's why I'm here.
$1,000 on a garbage can.
I'll tell you, a former venue I managed, we were looking for a handful of outside ones, light use. And at the time, the entity I worked for required you to go with the lowest bidder. And we did, and this would have been back in 2002, 2003. They were in the ballpark of $900. They didn't even last 5 years. And it was completely to build quality. And I remember physically trying to shop that around, and they're so different, and they didn't really match up. You know, it's really hard, and you definitely get what you pay for. So these prices, I was surprised, are not that different when I was shopping, 10, 12 years ago.
I can cut these prices in half, but in 5 years, you're gonna be
Right.
buying garbage cans.
Penny wise and pound foolish.
I mean, I can drop down to a 32-gallon garbage can. I'll be up there constantly empty it out again. There's lots of things I can do. Just give me a direction of which way you want me to go.
Mr. Avery.
I would like to point out that we should not go to bigger cans, because we reach a point where to get a good quality item, the garbage can itself is a significant portion of what has to be lifted each time. There are limits. I don't want to get into OSHA and all that, but I think our point here is to get a durable item. We seem to have a good track record on this, and I think we made a selection to go with this at this point. We just voted on that.
We voted waiving.
Yes. Mr.
Yes,
Turner.
we voted to waive the, so we could buy these. That's the one.
So if members of this board don't want to go on the recommendation of our city employee, then members of this board should put technical specs together for him to submit for bidding, right? I mean, you're basing it on your opinion and your years of experience.
But that's your board opinion. That's your
Right.
board that has to.
That's what I'm saying.
recommend the
Then
board.
if members of this board want to force you into a competitive bidding process rather than take your wisdom, they should supply you with technical specs so that you can go out and bid for it.
That would be making the motion up there and having you guys present that to me. I can't.
This isn't forcing anybody into anything, Mike. I'm looking after the taxpayers' dollars, and I know the last time we
Well,
spent this kind of money,
This
it was
comes
a
out of
huge
St. Clair
outcry.
County Parks and Recs money. This comes out from.
care.
But I'd rather
county
see Parks and Rec
to us.
money spent on repairing the roof on that bathroom down in the beach than spend the $5,000 on 5 garbage cans. I'm sorry, I'm not disrespecting what you're saying, and I know you're going with the same thing, but I just see that there's other options out there, and maybe they don't match all the other things, but I just can't see spending that kind of money on a
Well,
garbage can.
if you look at the pricing on them, yes, they are $800 or $1,000 difference, but the quality is better. When you look at these, when you look at those inside the internet, they may be $700, but the rain bonnet is another $150, $200. That's what jacks up the prices. You can look at all those that you want when you were looking on the internet, but add the rain bonnet to it. It'll jack it up to $800 for any garbage can.
This one here with the rain bonnet is...
That's not the rain bonnet.
It has the rain bonnet. If I price it with the rain bonnet, it's $632.
Okay, is that 36 gallon?
Yep,
Okay.
What's the gauge
and I didn't have all of it.
coating?
It's got a powder coating, you can pick it in colors.
It's the gauge.
It's not listed on here at that point, it might be on a different page. I just think that there's,
Mr. Avery.
And to further this discussion a little bit in the proper channel, if we do not want to take the advice of our DPW manager, then a scope of work should be written and submitted so that he has a way to meet the requirement we want. At that point, then we can decide on price. But that's the way it's done. You don't go out with just sort of waving your hand wishes. A scope of work tells exactly what we expect to get.
Lisa.
maybe we need to go out and take a look at what some of the other communities have and how long they've lasted and see what else is out there.
I
See
can
what
change,
they've had luck
change
with.
designs, I can do whatever you
Right.
want me to do. You wanna see cement ones on there, I'll do cement ones, and
Yeah, we also need to keep in mind, this has happened a few times, about not waiving competitive bidding and some other things, and I support people's beliefs in that. But we also need to keep in mind that time is money. You know, we already have beach playground equipment that Mike has volunteered a lot of his personal time to do, and he's so busy with other things that things are getting backlogged. You know, we only have so much time, so many resources, and when we nitpick at things like this, yeah, we might be saving a little bit of money, but are we wasting a lot more time? And people aren't, we need to really adjudicate that when we start to dictate these day-to-day operations. You know, the city commission, in my mind, is big policy things, and if we start to dig at these micromanaging details, it really doesn't garner a lot of trust, and I think it wastes a lot of staff time.
We only have a couple months of summer left. You know, we've dragged our feet on the beach parking and a couple of the other things that are gonna go until next year.
yeah, you know, we have a lot of downtown foot traffic right now.
Oh, I know.
And it's gonna continue during the winter time.
Well, maybe you can take that one out on the bike trail and put that one up there. That would help you. Well, it's not doing any good out on the bike trail. At least a fancy one. We can put a regular plain garbage can out there. And I'm not trying to,
No.
you know, all I'm trying to do is watch the money. That's all. Sorry. I just saw that beach, the roof on that bathroom today, and it looks like that's where we're gonna need to, that needs to be replaced. So.
Yes.
I just think we need to be careful that we're not, you know, when again, you know, we start micromanaging our department heads, we are spending a lot of money on time, like Commissioner Simpson said, and also, you know, extending this out. And I can remember back going through this with trash cans again, these receptacles have held up. I remember what some of the other ones looked like. And it makes a big difference in the town. This is, when you think about the staff and what's going to have to go on and the time spent and so forth and so on, in developing specs and researching them, it doesn't make any sense to do that over this amount. And the other question that I had for you too, Mike, is there was, I can remember a discussion about whether or not they could be picked up, carried, thrown in the river.
Well, they all get anchored down.
These ones are get
Whatever we
anchored.
buy will
and
be
you haven't-
anchored down.
And you've been working with these, and these are the ones that have worked well for you, is that correct?
Yes.
So, as you leave here tonight, it's apparent to me that you didn't get a clear direction on what type of receptacle you should get, other than get the cheapest one. That's the only voice that I really heard.
But that's also not the voice of the aggregate of the commission.
Excuse me, can I finish? You don't mind if I finish, do you?
Please.
All right, thanks. So what direction do you feel you have tonight from this board as far as pursuing quotes?
To find 36 gallon garbage collectors and at a lower price.
Okay.
So that's what I'm feeling, so that's why I bring back.
Any other, yes.
I don't think that's the will of the commission. I certainly don't feel that way.
You set the rules, you tell me, so that's what you
yeah,
desire,
well,
that's what I'll do.
I make a motion that, that Mike be allowed to use the specs that he has to seek competitive bidding and come back to us.
Would that be the specs of the Victory trash can?
Yes.
I would
the
support
Victor
that.
Stanley.
I
Yeah.
support that.
You might as well use this bid now. So
Because they're not gonna,
I will come back with lower bids. There's 36 gallon lower bids with green bonnets, everything we need.
green bonds, okay.
Okay?
Thanks, Mike.
We need to vote on that.
I'm
No.
not even,
Yeah, hold on, we got a motion on the, we do have a motion, do we have a support?
Yeah.
Yes.
Dave supported it. One more question, though. So when you come back, is this board expecting you to come back with formal letters from each of the companies? Or because you're trying to save time and research this on the internet.
These are all internet companies, and they're not gonna send us, so they're not gonna do
A
it.
formal quote letter?
They're not gonna do that.
Yeah.
They're gonna send us quotes like I have on
Right,
here, that's it.
How do we circumvent that?
That's
Because
the
our
point.
charter says that if it's over 2,000, it's gotta be a closed bid.
Right?
So how do we circumvent that if we can't get a closed bid?
You waive the bidding process.
But then if we have a standstill, we
People
can't
won't
waive
do
that,
that.
then we can never get trash cans.
And a number of other things, because it's not
Because
just
this is
about.
gonna continually be a problem as things keep getting more expensive.
So like one at a time each month or 2 years. is fine.
exactly.
Could we get 3 of the exact, of either Victor Stanley's or that look just like Victor Stanley's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll look, see what I can find, and I'll bring it back to you.
I'll give you this one here that,
Okay.
Maybe the way to
Is it
do
mobile?
maybe the way to do it,
Mobile? Name on it?
no, I don't think so.
maybe the way to do it tonight is for the motion to say, Mike, can you get 3 bids that seek the equivalent of the one you like without having to do closed bids, but you want transmitted information presented back to the board?
What he said.
So that you don't have to go through the, you just have to bring back 3 communicated prices to the board.
I accept that as my amended motion.
And I would support.
Any? Yes.
Yeah, so instead of efficiently researching on the internet, you're gonna request that they send you something on a letterhead.
It could be an email, just a.
They won't.
Oh, you can, email's okay?
Yeah, any, I said a
Okay.
written communication back.
Ah, okay.
And it would help if that motion was passed unanimously. Then I would sleep better.
Any other questions or concerns?
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
So the motion is what now?
Short of closed bid, and sealed bid process, he's gonna bring back 3
Letters.
Written.
Written.
3 communications of similar quality using the specs of the one he likes as the bar.
So we can vote now? My
Commissioner
first.
Turner?
Yes.
Mayor Vandembosh?
Yes.
Commissioner Avery?
Yes.
Commissioner Hendrick?
Yes.
Commissioner Clausen?
Yes.
Commissioner Leftley?
Yes.
Commissioner Simpson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on to drinking fountains.
We need some drinking fountains downtown. Unfortunately, put one down at Drake Park and one at Mariners, or we can put one at Mariner and Nautical. All three of those parks have water I can hook up to get this working. Again, these are only, $1,300, and there's cement. I need 2 of them. They are ADA accessible. If you look at the next one, if you get into the fancier ones, I think this one runs around $1,700. And, got my glasses on. That one's 13. And one's 17. But they range in prices.
Yes. Go ahead.
I just wanted to know, are any of them refrigerated?
No.
No, and
No.
that's a good thing, I think with this.
These will be standalone units.
And just from an aesthetic point of view, the last one, the Halsey Taylor, it fits in with our lamps and other things that are in our parks. And it is dark green. It says it's the dark forest green.
Which
That's
one
the
you looking
last
at?
one. Halsey Taylor, it's the last one in my packet. It's the thin one,
Cast iron.
the cast iron one. To me, it goes along with the ambiance of the town. That's just an aesthetic opinion.
No, I'm recommending the concrete one.
Okay.
It's ADA accessible.
Sounds good.
This is a question that Captain Obvious can answer, but I want to bring it up.
Captain Obvious.
They have to be shut off in the wintertime, obviously.
Correct.
So we only have use of them on, say, 9 months.
April till
Yeah.
November.
Okay, just as long as everybody understands that
Yes.
they are heated.
Mike, now you picked the parks, nothing down by the beach. Is there a water fountain already
There's
down?
water fountain at the beach already.
Okay.
The Mariner Park is a new park next to the beach.
Right.
We can put one there
Okay.
and one at Drake Park, or we can put it at Drake Park and Nautical. Those are the three options. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I went down and took a look at it. It's the ones on the old bathroom. There's one right there, and that's fairly new. You must have put that in.
Right, yep.
So I'd kind of like to see one at the Mariner Park more than, and then maybe one down on the other end or something.
Well,
but-
so I figured Mariner Park and Drake Park.
Yeah.
Drake Park's right in the center of town.
Yep.
Yeah, and if
makes a
we
lot of
have the
sense.
music things and the, yeah, I would rather see the Mariner and the Drake Park than the,
Okay.
Any other questions for Mike? I need a motion to waive competitive bids.
Make a motion? No?
no,
No.
this is 1,300.
The 1,300. This
I'll
is
make a
like-
motion that we
That's
approve
the next one.
the Global Industries ADA accessible drinking fountain in the amount of $1,390.
Support.
Any other questions or concerns? Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Vandenbosch.
Yes.
Commissioner Avery.
Yes.
Commissioner Hendrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Clausen.
Yes.
Commissioner Lovely.
Yes.
Commissioner Simpson.
Yes.
Commissioner Turner. Motion carries.
Next, we're moving on to the boring tool.
You want to waive competitive bidding on this one?
Yes.
Combine the two things?
Yes, this is, these are only the two units I can find in the state that sells them. Have you ever seen a missile boring tool? What
Yeah,
these do?
I think this is a great thing, so that I'll
One
make.
question before we go on to this, if I could. Didn't we just waive competitive bidding? Do we also need to vote to purchase the fountains?
No, they're under.
We
No,
did,
we didn't
that
have
was
to
wrong.
waive.
It
So
was
just,
under.
I just want to make sure.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank
We
you.
have to waive on this one.
No, before we got too far past
Yep.
it, I just want to make sure. Thank
So I'll
you.
make a motion to waive competitive bidding for the two items, the whole hammer and the hammerhead.
No,
No, just the one.
Just the one? Which one are you getting?
number one. The Vermeer.
The Vermeer Midwest whole hammer for $3,000.
I'd support that.
Motion and support. Any other questions on the boring tool?
I just wanted to say one thing, too. We are headed into a severe sand shortage, and the fact that this is going to save you money, the price of sand is going to just go crazy, because we are having trouble getting it now. The grade of sand that you would have to use. So the fact that this cuts way back on the use of that sand is another big plus for this project.
Plus time, material, money.
Roll call.
Commissioner Avery.
Yes.
Commissioner Hendrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Clausen.
Yes.
Commissioner Lovely.
Yes.
Commissioner Simpson.
Yes.
Commissioner Turner.
Yes.
Mayor Vandenbosch.
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we purchase the Vermeer Midwest two-hole hammer for $3,000.
Support.
Any more discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hendrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Clausen.
Yes.
Commissioner Lovely.
Yes.
Commissioner Simpson.
Yes.
Commissioner Turner.
Yes.
Mayor Vandenbosch.
Yes.
Commissioner Avery.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thanks, Mike. Maritime Days follow-up discussion.
I just wanted to add this to the agenda so that we can discuss some of the positives and negatives of Maritime Days this past weekend, or the weekend before. We mostly heard a lot of favorable things about Maritime Days. A great event for the community. I think there were a lot of new events, and the leadership this year was different, and certainly stepped up to the plate and did a great job on running the event. There were some issues that people had cited regarding some of the street closures in particular. Thursday night, or actually Thursday afternoon, I believe, at about 4 o'clock or so, the north end of Water Street was closed, and there really wasn't much going on, if anything going on. I don't know if it was an issue that equipment hadn't arrived, or there was a miscommunication with the person that was new running the event. One thing that I think we may want to consider in the future when we have special events that in particular have road closures is that we request whomever is doing the special event to do a notice to any affected parties that are in the area of the road closure. That's something that either we could manage and send out notices and bill the applicant as part of their special event application, or we could have them provide a letter when they apply for their special event, and they can be the responsible party for sending out that information. Some of the other things that were brought up are issues that I have heard in the past about bringing the food vendors to town, competing in essence with our local restaurants. Also, one of the things that has been mentioned in the past is if this is a nonprofit, what are they doing with the money? One of the things of a nonprofit is, in essence, that is it, is they're not there to make a profit. So they're not there to make money and turn it over to some group like Lions Club or 4-H or anything like that. They, in essence, are there to bring in money to cover the costs for the event. So I think there might be a little bit of a issue with people's interpretation of a nonprofit, so I think we just kind of wanted to maybe address that. Those are some of the complaints and concerns that I have heard, and I think us talking about it, if there's anything else that anyone else has, I think now might be a good time to discuss that while it's still fresh in our mind.
I'll start by just saying that I had relatives from out of town in all weekend, and it was absolutely fantastic. I was out of town for the past 2 years, and it was a great festival. All the family members that were involved. Had a brother-in-law run a 5K, and we took the nephews to the inflatables and the carnival, and my brother and I went to the car show. It was a lot of fun, so kudos to everyone involved for putting together a festival that grows and grows each year. I want to speak a little bit to what I heard about a nonprofit. You know, I can tell you from working the music festival and many other things that I've done, to allege that someone uses profits or keeps profits after a festival being potentially inappropriate shows a lack of misunderstanding of what it takes to put on a festival. I know for the music festival, 90% of our monies to secure artists, vendors, and everything else happened before we received a dime of ticket sales or anything like that. So it's very important for a group to continue a festival to have the seed monies from year to year. And I know what I've heard and my understanding over the years before this particular group of individuals got back to sort of give the festival a resurgence, that was one of their big problems, is not having seed money and not being able to engage things like a carnival or a full midway, which they lost, and these things. So I would appreciate that anyone who might be suggesting that they're maybe keeping money or using it for different things have a drastic misunderstanding of what it takes. It's upwards of tens of thousands of dollars because each group requires mandatory deposits. The group itself, I'm sure, needs insurance, and you have all your publicity and all these things that your liquor license applications, deposits for bands, all that has to be secured ahead of time. And you don't necessarily know what you're going to make. If you have a rain out on a weekend, that might affect upwards of 60-70% of your potential income. So if you don't have that nest egg, you're really putting your whole operation, your whole nonprofit at a huge disadvantage. You're putting that all at risk if you say that you have to insinuate giving that money away I also know that in years past, is it last year or year before, they built and donated additional picnic tables to the Lions Club as a thank you for them, allowing them to use picnic tables for the festival, and a few other groups I know. I don't remember them all off the top of my head, but that's the one that popped into mind, that they built them ahead of time, and then the Lions Club, received, I think, is 4 or 5 more as a thank you, and I know other groups were similar. So I'd like to just offer that perspective of being aware of what it would take to put that on. And I also want to comment on the road closures and that. Yeah, we've heard that in years past. There's some concerns of businesses down there, and I do think the group involved needs to be proactive in communicating things, and I like the thought of including in their application, whether it's a mailing or something like that, because that's important.
Mr. Avery?
I have 2 items. One is to support what Commissioner Simpson mentioned, with perhaps the thought that the funding for this nonprofit organization should be available to the public to see that, yes, we made this much money, we spent this much, we retain a certain amount to use so we can do it again. I mean, that makes sense. But if you just say, well, we have to keep this, okay, that gets a bit awkward. The other thing is the food vendors coming in is something that's intangible, but it certainly does cut into business that's downtown. The people downtown bear all the burdens of the traffic and everything else. I think it's important that should be stressed to this group, that we have to be respectful of the commercial ventures downtown, and to the point of some ventures that have to shut down because their business has nothing to do with the street being totally closed and filled with people. There are businesses that should have some consideration for lost business.
I had a couple of comments. It's and it's kind of funny though. It's about garbage cans. They did an excellent job of emptying them. That was what I seen was a very clean, and Mike, I thought they did an excellent, they had people out with brooms and dustpans, which it was very neat, and I really commend them on that. And it takes a lot of volunteers. I had a lot of fun judging the ribs. I went in a food coma on it, but there was a lot of things going on, and I seen the BMX guys. I was just hoping they didn't fall. I didn't want to call, and I missed the water ski thing. I really wanted to see that one. It was. Yes, Mr. Turner.
I don't think anybody here is questioning the quality of the event or the hard, dedicated people that put it together. I mean, they're all volunteers. They all work hard year-round to put on a great event for the city. I think what's in question here is, it's, in my opinion, 2 things. A little better planning and a little better communication. That's all. Mr. Idrich, what time did Broadway get closed? It was closed on Thursday morning?
We closed it at 7:30 Thursday morning.
Right.
And then when I started getting phone calls about, nothing's happening.
Right.
I got on to the vendors and the carnival.
Yeah.
And they got their cans up there.
So essentially, the business is at the north end of town from Thursday morning until Friday at 4 o'clock when it opens?
Yep.
A lot of those businesses are shut down.
Yep.
People, because they don't have private parking, they rely on street parking.
Yeah.
And foot traffic.
Yep.
And if everything's shut down to set up, essentially, they're inconvenienced for almost 2 days.
And then I know I talked to some of the business owners at the North End. The Pinewood Derby thing that was set up down there was what? It was like a 4-hour thing or something. So but the time it took to set that up and block that into town for a 4-hour event and then the takedown time, nobody was coming down at that end of town even during the festival other than passing through because there was nothing happening other than this ramp that was sitting there for 4 or 5 hours use. So I think that's part of the concern here. The planning of putting that in front of the North End businesses for something that lasted for 4 hours, but essentially put them out of business for 2-3 days.
That's one of the.
And then not being communicated to that this was gonna happen at 7:30 Thursday morning.
Wayne and I talked about that. It's communication breakdown. We were supposed to talk to people.
Right.
So we did. And next year, we're going to pull a tighter rein on the road closures. They're not going to be here at this time. I'm not shutting down the roads until they show up.
More localized closures instead of the whole,
Yes.
the whole area, district? Yes.
I just want to point out real quickly that what we're offering is intended to be constructive, we'll call it criticism, but constructive
Yeah.
comments.
Right.
So, on a good event.
There's always work to be done. Yes.
Well, you know, time-wise, like 6 o'clock in the morning, you've got Gars and you've got the bakery and a few other things that are open. And I know that we keep that side of the street open for fire trucks and stuff during the festival. But is there a reason that they could keep them open so they could get down and do that, like the breakfast people in the morning and the bakery and stuff like that, you know? I do anyway, but, well, last year they actually ticketed one of the customers for going around the barricades that go to the bakery in the morning at 6 in the morning.
Anything else on the,
Maybe you have some suggestions, maybe?
Well, I think probably one of the biggest things is going to be when we have a special event permit that involves a road closure, that either they provide a letter that's going to detail when and where the road closures are gonna be, and we mail it out, or they mail it out.
Okay.
That's probably the most important thing, going back to that communication. That way, they know the event's coming, they know when
Yeah, they
they're
could
gonna be
plan
affected.
accordingly. Maybe they have to close for that day or not have full staff or whatever. Yeah.
I do think as a board, we could maybe do a little bit more to put the onus on a planner for an event or a festival to have a more specific site plan. I know that's difficult to do sometimes when you're working so far in advance, but I think, you know, when you come closer to the event, say a couple months out, for us to require an absolute site plan. I was going back through some of my notes, and I remember them saying on a couple of occasions that, oh, it's difficult because it's always in flux. Well, I think at a certain point, it can't be in flux. We have to know, and I don't think that's unfair to the group. I think if we're talking about it in the winter, that's one thing. If they want to get, I know in previous years, they've come to us for kind of a cursory approval, you know, at a very high level. But I think at some point, the final approval needs to come to us or city staff that locks events and structures, whether it be vendors or the bike ramp or anything like that, into an absolute location. And then I think that's when work can be done to notify the individuals that are affected around it. So I think that's something that this board could do a little better job of requiring a bit more information.
One other thing that we kind of have talked about is, instead of total road closures, trying to keep everything to one side so we can at least always maintain one lane of traffic, which of course is a necessity for fire and emergency vehicles.
and I think Erica DeLang has been, she worked with the festival and then tried to help communicate some of the issues and, you know, with the businesses. But I don't, you know, I think we need to take it a little further. Maybe hopefully they join on and help out with some of the festival planning, you know.
Maybe
at
for
least attend a meeting or two.
Maybe for anyone who's following along at home or in the crowd, not one meeting I remember all year has gone by that they don't post in advance asking people to show up if you want to volunteer or just receive more information on it. So I would say if anyone has some criticism or thoughts on how communication can be improved, maybe they go to the next regular meeting and have a civil conversation with them. And not to tell someone, again, this happens oftentimes, what to do with their money in their festival, but offer perspective. You know, if there's an affected property owner or business owner, just to tell their story briefly of how they may be affected, because playing devil's advocate, maybe they weren't necessarily thinking about how that might affect a business because they don't frequent that business or know, you know, about their operation. So I would encourage anyone to attend a meeting or two, just to, or submit a letter to them, just to offer perspective so they can take that into account.
I think that's a fine idea too, but I don't think it's their obligation. I think it's our obligation. We approve the event. And this particular event's the only one that we have that shuts down the, you know, a whole section of town for 3 or 4 days. So it's, and we approve it. So it's really on our.
I don't disagree, but
Well,
communication
that's
is a two-way street, and that's how you can improve communication with everyone involved. No one is 100%
Well,
guilty or innocent, so.
I kind of like what you said before that, in that the fact that we don't allow them to have a fluid plan that we've approved months in advance and not knowing what the final plan is. So that's one part of it. But we have to do a better job. We approve it.
Agreed.
We allow them to take over that street for 4 days and shut down some of those businesses.
Agreed.
So it's up to us to make sure it runs smooth. Because those businesses are 365, not 4 days out of a year.
Yep.
So if they're inconvenienced, it's our fault.
Anything else?
Nope.
Everybody else good? Moving on to surplus funds.
2015, 2016, we ended the fiscal year with approximately 200,000 surplus in our general fund. That was partially because of some changes that we had in staffing, and that was my first budget year here with the City of Marine City, and I had requested that department heads do a minimum budget that did not entail any capital spending or anything above and beyond day-to-day business. We have utilized some of the money to this point. The sidewalk program, we set aside $75,000 to, in essence, front the work and give the residents an opportunity to pay for their sidewalk improvements over the course of 3 years. We utilized $15,000 for the Bruce Street house demolition. $13,000 we've dedicated to working on ordinance updates with our planning consultant, Wade Trim, and $6,000 for a parking study that Wade Trim's conducting, which should be completed and before you shortly. In the 2017-18 budget, we allocated $40,000 of surplus funds for the purchase of a police car. With some of the remaining funds, there are a couple other things that I think are a little pressing for us to consider. That being a fire hall speaker system. That's something that I have heard since I've been here, that people have been complaining about not being able to hear what people are saying that are on commission. I believe that actually is something that's been complained about probably longer than the 2 years I've been here. The meeting room chairs here, we're getting to a point where we don't really have enough left. I think I've got 4 left in my office to replace these as they fail, and if I start losing those chairs, then I don't have chairs for when I meet consultants or anyone else in our office. So I'm actually already down to really 4 chairs at our conference table that would normally seat 8. Also, the entry door that we have here, this building obviously is leased to the fire department, and they are in charge of the maintenance of the building. However, the door back here really is something that's primarily used for all of our meetings and for elections. It is something that needs to be ADA compliant, and I think it's a priority for something that we really should consider replacing. The final item that I have here on this list is the EV electronic vehicle vehicle charging station upgrades. This, I believe, was something that was purchased through either TIFA funds or grants a number of years ago. It has actually been, I wouldn't say out of operation, because I understand that people are able to plug in. The charge card portion of it's not working. So I don't know who's paying for the electricity. It seems to, in essence, be a free charging unit at this point. The only way to upgrade this unit and make it so that it is operable the way that it's intended to be is to do these upgrades. These are just some of the items that really are pressing, and I would look to commission for some guidance about what we want to do moving forward with these items. Obviously, with the issue that we've had tonight and in previous meetings with waiving competitive bidding, this is something that will be challenging on my part. There are some things that there are not a lot of vendors for, in particular the EV charging station, because that's a product that we already have in place, and that's a vendor. So either we would completely replace and get bids from other vendors, or we can work with the vendor that is already the one that installed the unit. And some of the other things, like the meeting room chairs, it's the same type of scenario as the trash cans, that it's something I, in essence, would be going online and getting pricing information from a number of sources, as opposed to something that I would go out and competitively bid and send bid letters to. Also, something that I would probably be looking for is some guidance if we do any type of bid process or anything, what kind of specifications you're looking for. Like we've talked about earlier, we don't want to spend a lot of our time and effort spinning our wheels and having to come back and forth if something's not good enough. We'd like to get it right and get it done the first time. So that's where I'm at with that. Obviously, these are things that have been sitting out there for a long time. We don't necessarily need to make any decisions about it tonight, but this is really my recommendation for utilizing some more of those surplus funds at this point for some more urgent things.
Yes, Mr. Avery.
What would be the payback period for these electronic vehicle charging upgrades?
It really all depends on usage. And I don't know how much usage there is. I believe the device that's down there right now is a 2-plug charging station. So in essence, 2 cars could use it. I don't know anyone with an electronic vehicle. I haven't been able to get anyone to look into it.
I know one that comes out here, it's a gal I know from work, and she used it. She's the one that told me it was still working, and she just plugged it in and charged her car. So I can ask her if she's seen others there, but I know she still comes out here.
A consideration would be to, in essence, decommission it if we don't have much use for it.
Yeah.
Because
That was a grant.
we're paying for the electricity. I don't
Correct.
think this is
Yeah.
free. When we hit the funds in here, you'll see that, well, you know, of course, many charges for electrical things. And so we pay for the electricity to begin with. So all we would now would be able to draw some sort of fee off of the top of the electric that we pay for. So $7,000, I would think perhaps.
It would take a lot of cars to charge on it to
Yeah,
recoup our
yeah,
$7,000.
just to make somebody happy that they can charge, they can run on the roads without paying gas tax.
Yeah, to speak to the charging station, I remember when the grant was first passed and those were installed, and those are one of those things that you put it out there and you hope that gets a good response. But I don't ever remember seeing anyone plugged in. We just have one anecdotal story.
Yeah.
We certainly haven't received any complaints from anyone that it doesn't work. I've never seen anyone plugged into it, and I go by there at least every day. So it seems like $7,000 could be better spent elsewhere. That would be my thought. You know, if it was $1,000 or $2,000, that might be a different story, but that's a good sum of money. It seems like to cap that service would be a wiser investment.
Yeah, as an alternate, I can talk to Mike and see what it would take to, in essence, decommission the unit.
I'd just like to say something about that. It is my understanding that we are moving towards more in the way of electric cars. And so there's going to be more demand in the future.
They're building them, but no one's buying them.
Yeah.
Yeah, the issue is,
The government forcing it.
Yeah,
and
they
more
do
of them,
hybrid, so
they
you
have
have
longer
to-
range, that's the issue now. All the ones now are a hybrid, so they have a gas motor, so you charge them at home and you get longer range, so there's less need to charge them,
Well, what I
ad
was-
hoc wherever you stop.
What I was starting to say was, maybe we should find out what the usage is going to be for this. What is this going forward? Are there other towns, cities that have these? Where is
Everybody
this going?
seems to have one, and there's rarely ever people plugged into them.
Yeah.
Except over in Milford at the GM.
Again,
proving ground.
we should be able to get more information on that.
I just know that working on the programs, they just can't evolve, so I don't see using it. One of the ones I want to talk about too is the fire station door entry. I talked to the fire chief. I think we could toss that one back to the fire authority and take a look at, because he did tell me he felt he already had money in the budget for that. So that one we might be able to take care of, so we could take that to the authority and ask, okay? I think we need the chairs. I'm tired of everybody almost killing themselves in these chairs, or they lean, or the wheel falls off, or whatever, so we definitely gotta get the chairs.
How many chairs are you looking for?
People side chairs.
10. We may need more than that, though.
Yes.
I don't know how many people fire authority generally has. It
We use
seems
the
like
same
it's-
amount,
About the same.
and if not, we pull a couple out from the, we have nine members.
Mr. Turner and I will write the specs for that.
How about, who's gonna do your specs for the speaker system?
Well, that's a fair question, because normally a system like that would be a design build. So that becomes a complex job, because normally you pick a company and work with them, because solutions are unique and different vendors are going to be dealers for different products. And so I think you can create a general spec, but there's many different ways that a vendor could solve the same problem. I think we can all agree individual microphones are best, a tap-in maybe for CTV so they get a better audio feed. We eliminate some of these unsightly cables. I think beyond that, I think you need to be a little more open-minded, because you could create a bid spec, but then what a lot of times happens in the AV industry is whoever is the vendor for that product that you put on your spec is going to be the one that gets it. And so that's not really, it might seem on paper a fair bid process, but it's not, and it's not going to yield you many results. That would be my recommendation. I'm happy to work with that, but I also don't want to create such a detailed bid spec that it prevents alternative solutions from a vendor that does this every day.
Now, one question I had though, will it be able to move in case the city
Yes.
decides to move out?
Yeah, I think other than,
So
I think we can, when the city has a conversation with a prospective company, that we tell them that needs to be a solution. It's a problem. John Gaber and I, before I was on the board, worked on this for 2 years, and I priced things out just for like me doing the work on behalf of the city. Just alone, it was $7,000 or $8,000 just for the most cost-effective solution right there. But the other element that's tricky with that particular one is that this is a multi-use space. That's usually not the case for that type of system. So you almost have to have an AV tech or something. I mean, it's asking a lot of a clerk or a deputy clerk to set that up and have it work every time. We might have to think about usage of this space and that, because it drastically affects the type of solution a company can propose. And it could drastically increase the cost too. And that's going to be the first question they ask.
I think what we would probably really want to do is do a request for proposals, put together the information that we have, that this is a multi-use building, that we want something remote so that we can move it to another location if necessary. Really state all of our needs and put the bid out there, have companies come to us and take a look at the site, do a site visit, and in essence, they do the work and provide us with a proposal of what they think is going to suit our needs.
Could we put in for overtime if we go past 10 o'clock? Now, I'm just gonna, sounding brilliant, I was gonna say, Dave is the one to talk to when it comes to sound systems. If he's willing, I'm certainly hoping that he will consult.
I'm happy to help. I'm happy to offer whatever the city would like, offer potential vendors, help with specs, whatever anybody wants, please feel free to call me.
I think I've got a good idea of direction here. So with the speaker system, I'll probably work on putting together some type of proposal. Maybe I'll have Dave help me on that. I'll bring the proposal to commission for everyone to take a look at before we send that out to get bids. As far as the meeting room chairs, what I'll probably do is kind of go online, take a look at some options that we have, and bring those to commission for potential consideration. The entry door repairs, the quote that I have, I'll forward that on to the fire authority. And the charging station, I'll work with Mike and we'll put together what a potential cost would be for decommissioning.
Great.
And just as simple, I think, is spec, something that's important for us to remember is there should be a certain sound energy level out there. That's why we're doing this, is so people can hear.
Not possible to spec that. It's, the quick science behind that is the quieter you are in front of the microphone, the quieter it is out there. So unless you have someone physically turning the knob every time you talk, that is not a realistic spec to put on a system. Physics cannot do that. Certain systems have what would be called auto mixing. You can do that to an extent. But if you're super quiet, a microphone is going to do one thing, and one thing only, is pick up the loudest thing in front of it, if that's the fan overhead or the papers.
We don't need to hash out the details. We're just given approval to proceed with the
Yeah,
project.
I know, but the point is,
No, the point is, it's 10 o'clock and we got a lot to cover yet.
yeah, well, okay. We've had microphone things in here before,
Right.
and you can't hear out there, so that's the important thing.
Duly noted.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to the Historical Commission's requesting installation of a light pole.
Make a motion that we approve this request.
Support?
Any other questions or concerns?
Is this gonna be on 24/7? Are those other lights on 24/7? I thought they were supposed to, we talked about maybe a timer, because I don't know why we need all this stuff on after 1 o'clock. I mean, we're paying a lot of money for electricity, and
They're
I
not
have a
on,
problem with
they're
the
not
pole,
on
but
during
I
the
just
day.
think.
They're not on during the day.
No, not during the day, they're not.
No, I'm
they-
talking at night when they're using them, but after 12 midnight, 1 o'clock, why do we need them on? Nobody's out there,
We
you know.
need 2 bids, one to waive the electrical fee.
Night lights are for security, I believe. That's the function why we do
These are
this.
gonna shine on what, bricks?
And they're all, no,
It's gonna shine on the rudder and the brakes.
So after 1 o'clock.
They actually had a pretty extensive conversation at the Historical Commission meeting regarding this about lighting, and they were very receptive to the need to kind of control the lighting and keep it as minimal as possible, whether it be shrouding or a focused bulb that in essence keeps that light down as much as possible, and
I know
also
some of
obviously
the-
energy efficient LED.
I've talked to some of the people in the area, and some of it was, some of those other lights were bouncing off and bothering some of those people. And then I had the issue with people driving, and that was shining, and I think that was corrected. But, you know, I mean, after like 1 o'clock in the morning, I don't know why we have to have any of them on.
You said we need 2 motions.
Yeah,
Yes.
one to waive the electrical fee.
All right, so the first motion is to allow this to be put up.
Yep.
That's my motion.
Do we have a second?
I support it.
Do you support it? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, second.
I'll make a motion to waive the electrical fee associated with the project.
Support.
Any more questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Then we're going to the charitable gaming license for the Bell River PTO. I think this is an annual,
It looked like about every 2 years.
every 2 years.
Yeah, I remember
This one was
before.
2015.
I move the approval of the gaming license for the Bell River Elementary PTO.
Support?
Any questions or concerns on this one? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Beach playground discussion.
As you may or may not recall, if you checked your email, I sent notice out that Mike Kittredge had gone out and marked the area that he had intended in placing the playground equipment by the beach. What his intention is to put it closest to the beach, and then the ADA sand digger would be kind of at the corner where the two sidewalks come together, one heading to the beach and the other one along the streets. Really what we're looking for at this point is any feedback that any of you might have regarding that location, consideration, if there's any change that we should have, and other than that, just approval of a location, whether it be what he marked or an alternative.
Lisa?
All right, so this is the thing that he sent us. And I went down to the beach and I talked to a lot of the people down at the beach to see what they felt. Pointed out that what was going in there, had the picture. A lot of them were concerned that this was too close to the street in the beach in that corner. They felt maybe it'd be better on the other side for safety reasons.
Go ahead.
Because even if it's I know it's set up for handicap, but you know other kids are going to use it.
It needs to be accessible from a sidewalk means.
Your sidewalk still goes along there.
Okay.
All they're saying is,
Oh.
You point at the color.
what, this thing?
Yeah, that's, I can put that anywhere.
No, I'm talking the digger.
The digger.
Yeah, that's not the digger, that's the digger.
All right, you
The
don't
digger
have-
is
you don't
what
have
you
the digger
were
on here.
planning on the corner, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Just
okay.
off the corner.
It's down over here.
Nope, the other side. Off Pearl Street.
Where's Pearl Street? Here?
Yep.
Well, that's the corner.
You were coming in,
Here's Pearl Street, here's the beach.
yeah, you got it on the east sidewalk. It's coming in off Pearl Street sidewalk.
Yeah, I know. I know where you marked it, I saw the mark. Okay. Their feeling is to opposite it, even though you got the sidewalk that runs along there. The other thing they commented on, they felt this was too close to the beach, maybe set it back just a little bit more. And then the other thing was that maybe in the back part of this lot, they all suggested maybe one or two trees in the back because there's no shade and there's a couple other tables on this side. And they said it's really sunny.
Yeah, I think that's something that has been brought up in the past by other people is
Yeah.
sunny, sunny, sunny,
It's sunny
because
at our beach, huh?
it's sunny at the beach, yes.
Well, this is over
Oh.
towards the back. They're not saying that. It's where the tables are and towards the back
Towards
of
the
the lot.
the White House over there.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Correct.
I myself was down there a couple times, and it seemed like everybody was sitting on the shady half of the park, which
Yeah.
is on the other end.
A lot of them are, but I mean, they said in this area, so that's the feedback I got from people that you go to the beach all the time, and that was their suggestion.
So are you looking for a motion or just input?
Well, if you have any other input, discussion, and then ultimately a motion for the location.
I have a question for Mike. Mike, do you know if there's any utilities or anything under there that we'd have to avoid? Okay.
That's where the posts are.
So it's a flexible footprint to an
So I'd like
extent.
to make the motion to approve Mike's judgment and placement of that playground equipment.
Support.
Any other questions or concerns?
What does that mean?
Where
Does
he's
that
got it
mean
marked.
Are you gonna listen to anybody from down at the beach, or are we just gonna put it where it's at? I guess it's,
Again, I thought I was clear. I made a motion, we approve Mike's proposed location. for playground equipment.
Do you have any
that
feedback?
doesn't tell me
I
anything.
can, where the slide, where that line is, I got close
Want
to
me
the
to paint a
sidewalk.
picture? What do you need?
That's 10 feet off the sidewalk, and the slide is still gonna be another 5 feet off that way. I can push everything back.
All I'm trying to do is, we asked for input, I got input from the beach people. All I'm trying to do is make sure somebody's listening to them, because I was trying to listen to them. That's all.
Did we have a second on my motion?
Yes, I second it.
Are you running the meeting?
Just asking if there was a second.
Everybody is today. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Disbursements.
I make a motion to approve disbursements including payroll.
report. Any questions or concerns on disbursements? Roll call.
Commissioner Clausen.
Yes.
Commissioner Buckley.
Yes.
Commissioner Simpson.
Yes.
Commissioner Turner.
Yes.
Mayor Minavash.
Yes.
Commissioner Avery.
Yes.
Commissioner Hendrick.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And for the record, that was $585,509.61. It wasn't on our agenda. We got that portion of the packet later, so it's two separate.
Preliminary financial.
I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary financial statements.
Support.
Any questions on the financial statements? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. City managers report, please.
I attended a Scott's meeting, Planning Commission, Tifa, Historical Fire Authority, and HSEM. We do have a new volunteer that is going around downtown, and he does sweeping. We have provided him a little sweep bucket, so he goes around and sweeps up some of the trash and cigarette butts throughout town. His name? Adonis. So I'd like to really thank that volunteer for that. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Mr. Turner.
Oh, thank you.
Senator.
I'd just like to, again, reiterate about the Little League team. I think it turned out great. I want to thank Dave and his wife Jennifer for all the hard work they did, because we couldn't put it all together without them for all the things that they did. Thanks.
Nothing to thanks.
And I'd like to thank the Lions Club for putting it on and getting it all together that fast of a thing, and it was a good hot dog and some corn. That's it.
Just real quick, I'd like to say one little thing about the street lamp that is going in. Some of you might remember Hubert Smith. He rescued that street light. It used to be in Heritage Park years and years and years ago. He had it in his yard for years and protected it, and I'd like to thank everybody that has come together, including the mayor and Mr. Ittrich, in getting that lamp blasted, painted, and so forth and so on, and Friends of City Hall putting over $4,000 into it to get that put up. It is going to be absolutely gorgeous. Also, I'd like to have people, the paver project is in, and I'd like to thank Amy Boren for all the time she put in on that, and the $6,000 that we have put into that. Plus the $8,000 on the uplight, all of that coming from Friends of City Hall. I'd also like to recognize the professionalism, especially in this time of the goings-on and tragedies in Charlottesville and Barcelona. I'd like to recognize the professionalism of our DPW, our police department, our fire department, in the handling of some very difficult and tragic situations during the last month. I thank you for that. Also, the St. Clair Jazz Festival is this weekend, and our own East China Community Big Band is going to be playing in that, along with some big name people. And congratulations to Coach Heslop and Coach Bell on their victory with their football team today. That's it.
I yield my time to sleep.
I did have a lot of fun with the girls the other night, and the fire department did cook everything, so if anybody comes down with anything, it's our fault. They actually had fun too. I mean, it was really nice to see the different groups working together, and they girls really enjoyed the Class Q siren a few times. They first hit it just a little bit, and then the fireman just going, "You got to hit it harder than that." So, other than that, can I get a motion for?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.